really, I think, do well here as people remember a time in their lives where they had more job security.
Well, are we getting joined? Okay. Oh. What was your political journey, Pixie? How did you?
Oh, okay. Okay. So basically, I was born and raised in, and growing up, I saw a lot of poverty, like a lot of it. And I remember from a very young age, just like kind of my mind exploding because we had to do community service. And, in Puerto Rico, if you can go to a private school, you also go to a private school. So I did community service. I went to this school that was a public school. I saw the paint falling off the walls. I saw the tables breaking down, the books all breaking down. And I remember thinking, what's the difference between me and these kids? What is the difference? Why do I get a nice school, a nice books, a nice whatever, and these kids don't? And when I realized it was luck from that young age, it just filled me with a deep sense of injustice. This is not right. It should not be this way. And I think ever since then, I've had a passion for just wanting to make things right, wanting to get people the resources that they need and should have, and not be screwed over just because they got unlucky, ultimately.
On the topic of Puerto Rico, should they be a state? Oh, we have a new guest, by the way. We have, what's your name again?
You can call me Destiny.
Destiny.
Dustin.
Dustin.
Yeah.
I can't call a fully grown man Destiny. Dustin's fine. But welcome to the show.
Box.
Yeah. Anyway, Puerto Rico, should they be a state?
Yeah.
Okay. Dylan?
No,
Why?
because I don't like them.
You don't like the Puerto Ricans? You don't like the Ricans?
No,
So you don't like
because
me?
all their boxers beat my favorite boxers, so I don't think they should be a state.
Well, maybe you should get better boxers.
That's true. We should get better boxers.
Yeah.
But no, they should be a state.
Right.
You have.
Want to confront Stephen on punching left?
Punching
Well,
left.
Pondering Politics wanted to do that.
He did, yeah.
But
But I know
he
Laura
dipped.
wanted to jump in on that.
He won't do it while he's sitting next to me.
Why
for
do you
a good
hate
reason.
leftists? Why, okay, here's the. Okay.
Because they're cringe.
Why?
The Puerto Rico stuff is a matter of just having stronger institutional power, right? You get more representation in Congress for
I
Democrats.
mean, it's a question of no taxation without representation. It's a
well, fuck
basic
that. Well,
American
okay, hold on. If
concept.
they were voting Republican, I wouldn't want them to be a state.
If they were voting Republican, I'd still want them to be
That's
a
a
state.
U.S. territory, okay? They don't deserve representation.
You have more nuanced opinions on this, don't you?
Yeah, okay, whenever people ask me this question, to me it's the equivalent of hey, what if we had a child and we beat it up every single day, and then at 18 years old, we're hey, you either can be homeless or you can get a seat at the dinner table, but we still might beat you up. And it's the first thing that has to happen is that we have to stop beating the freaking child, okay? We have to be able to put them in a level of stability where they can actually make decisions that, I guess they're fully informed and realized before you do anything else.
Wait, what is the metaphor? How does America beat the child of Puerto Rico?
So basically, if you look at Puerto Rican history as well as current Puerto Rican status and how we're under federal law, and basically we can pass our own general laws, but ultimately federal law trumps all. It seems very hard for Puerto Rico to be able to develop economically. Our domestic economy is basically shut down.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with federal law? I mean, federal law trumps state law in the United States as well, right?
Do you
how does that?
let me be more specific. Do you know the Jones Act?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so let's say I have a shipment of cars
Explain for the people at home that haven't heard of that.
Okay, so let's say for whatever reason you have a shipment of cars from Brazil, right? Logically, if you're gonna ship it, it would make sense for it to stop in Puerto Rico and then go to Florida. But the Jones Act basically dictates that no, you cannot do that. It has to go, maybe stop in Puerto Rico, go to Florida, then you have to change everything to a ship that was built in the United States with an all-US crew, and then ship those cars back to Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico, because of, and I could go into this for a very long time, because their long history of US interference or domestic policy, blah, 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 basically ships most stuff. So who covers all of that? Who covers the grand cost of this? Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico.
Wait, why is that the policy?
Because that's U.S. federal law.
No, I know it's U.S. federal law. What's the point of that?
Oh, the point of that was it's supposed to help U.S. ships, basically, and U.S. trade.
Merchant Marines.
What is is the Jones Act just Puerto Rico can't ship stuff directly to it, or is there is that a more comprehensive or larger thing?
That's basically the biggest part of it. I think there's 2 more clauses to it, but and it's not just Puerto Rico that suffers from this. That's also Alaska and Hawaii. So that's overall the Jones Act.
Wait, so you can't ship anything to Hawaii internationally either?
Not if it's like for trading. If it's not like big shipments or anything. I'm sure if you want to do like FedEx something to Hawaii, but if you're like trying to sell in bulk or whatever. I know that was like very messy wording, but yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Loner Box. Fight with Dylan real quick on that.
What?
I don't even fight about that.
The fight with me.
On what? What did I find you on?
You know exactly what.
Why would you do that last night? It was so rude.
Because they deserved it.
They deserved
The
it.
entire community. I never liked them.
Of course.
Do you think DC should be a state?
I do.
No taxation,
I
no
do. The
representation.
two options, right? The one option is they get either absorbed by Maryland because it would be Maryland because it's the best state, and then we just add a few Congress people, or we create them as a state. If you talk to DC people, they want to be a state. They don't want to be part of Maryland. They don't want to be part of Virginia. They don't want to stay in this weird middle ground where they do technically have representatives, but they're non-voting representatives, so they just kind of stand there and wave. They want to be able to have an impact on the legislature, and they have a higher population than many Midwestern states.
Wait, can I cut in for a second? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I have a random question I want to ask, starting with Steven and then going around. What do you think should be people's most pressing issue? Not what it currently is, but what do you think is a cause that people should really focus more and care about more in the United States that they don't do right now?
Rule of law and democracy.
You don't think people care about democracy here enough?
No.
Do you think that because of the Trumpsters, or do you think like...
I think nobody does. I think when leftists talk about packing the courts, I think when Trump people talk about not having insurrections or having justified insurrections, yeah, I think it's all redonkulous. I think people have a really hard time when other people they don't like win, and they try to like institutionally make that impossible. And I think in some ways it's really bad. In other ways I'm more sympathetic, but...
Yeah. I guess I just want to push back a little bit because I'm not saying this is right or agree, but the argument that I've heard some people say about packing the courts is because they believe the courts are currently undemocratic or one of the most undemocratic institutions. And basically it was because of congressional, like, I think filibustering is the right word, I don't know, but that basically Trump got, I think, 1 or 2 more nominees onto the court than he was supposed to.
One more, probably.
They blocked Merrick Garland.
Yeah, they blocked Merrick Garland.
But I don't know if I would say that was necessarily undemocratic. It gets a little bit complicated. I mean, the Supreme Court is democratic in that the appointees come from the elected president, and the Merrick Garland block was kind of democratic in that the Senate sort of had a mandate from the people to be undemocratic by blocking that appointment. It's kind of complicated. I think that reforms to the Supreme Court are okay. I really like the idea of was it every 20 years or something, or 24 years or something, you force a Supreme Court justice to retire?
Yeah,
Basically what it does is it made it so that every single president would get the exact same amount of Supreme Court picks because you're rotating basically the retirements. It's not like a lifetime appointed thing. But regardless, I think you can argue there's an issue with the structure of the Supreme Court, or at least like the unfairness of the appointments, but to say that the solution to that then is to just add like 30 more justices is kind of silly.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Loner?
By the way, I just want to throw out there, FDR had like a majority, and he wasn't able to pack the courts in the fallout of the Great Depression. So not only is there a question about whether or not it's the right move, there's also a question about just the practicality of achieving something like that.
Yeah, that's valid.
What do I think the most important issue for Americans should be?
Yeah.
I feel like inequality is quite a big thing here. It seems to be the case that the more equal and especially the more opportunity there is in society, a lot of other social problems tend to come down with it. At least I've heard some research on that. So, because when I come to America, the inequality seems pretty insane. Like, especially going on, one time I went from Georgia to New York on a megabus, what's it called? Greyhound, not megabus, that's the British one. And seeing just the disparity between all these different communities, and like you go through one town and like half the houses are derelict and they're falling apart, and then the other one you get this really nice urban center. Yeah, I don't know, I think that's always been a big problem. Probably very difficult to solve in such a big country, but I think that, and I do think the threats to democracy are quite real. Cool. Because when you have a democracy where like half the people don't believe in it, yeah, it's pretty scary.
I mean, I'm a foreign policy guy. I think foreign policy is a big issue, and I think Americans generally don't pay attention that much to foreign policy, considering how much outsized influence the United States has in the world, how much influence we have in the Middle East, how much influence we have in Europe, how much influence we have in Africa, all over the world, and in South America. I mean, a great example of this is, if you look at the New York Times this morning, the top 3 articles are about Joe Biden's age, and then the 4th is about Donald Trump saying the Russians should do whatever the hell they want in reference to NATO, and if they don't pay enough, then just screw them. That is a massive, 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 horrible break with American deterrent policy in Europe. And that is something which could legitimately provoke a war. If the Russians misread that, if Trump is just trying to like finagle a few more dollars out of NATO, but the Russians see uncertainty about our strategic position, about what our incentives are in Europe, and they think they can probe against the Estonians, they think they can probe against the Latvians, they think they can probe against the Lithuanians or any of these countries, then there's a situation where we can have a real security crisis if the Russians try something like that, not because we've changed our actual military capacity to defend Europe or because we're just weaker now, but just because of uncertainty created by somebody who couldn't shut his mouth.
Do you think Americans should care more about other countries?
I do think Americans should care more about
I think
other
it's a tall
countries.
order, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a tall order, but it's the right thing to do, and it makes sense for us. For example, people talk about Europe and, who cares about the European?
It's like half of your trade,
Why
isn't
should we
it? Yeah.
care? The majority of our exports, our number one exports, go to Europe. They're a number one continent for exports. 45% of global GDP is concentrated within Europe and North America. There are a gigantic trading partner. We're intertwined with them geopolitically. If they were to go down, if there was to be an economic crisis in Europe, maybe they wouldn't be able to buy up all the LNG exports that we're sending over there. That would have an effect on our economy too, just like the housing market screwed over the Chinese as well in 2008.
Do you think isolationism is like a big growing? Do you think it's actually becoming the case
It's a
that it's going to
cancer,
become a
man.
really, really serious threat?
It's a cancer, but it's always been here. It's just we've been able to kind of temper it down. If you look at the lead up to our involvement in the Second World War, there was a lot of America First sentiment. And I mean literally America 1st sentiment. That's what they called it. And there was a lot of isolationism during that period because they saw the horrors of the First World War, and their response wasn't, okay, let's limit what type of conflicts we go into and let's be smarter about entering these conflicts and know what interests we have at stake. It's let's just retract. It's an easy answer. It's a simple solution. Getting involved in the world might be complicated. It might come with issues. There might be mistakes that we make on the international stage. So let's just retract from the international stage and pretend we don't have any interest anywhere else, which will just lead to, economic and geopolitical
But it
catastrophe.
does seem like after World War II that changed pretty dramatically, right? Because since then you've got containment policies, a really big thing, and then I'm pretty sure the Vietnam War initially was quite popular, wasn't it? At least until
It's
started to
complicated
drag on.
because it's kind of like a gradual increase. Like it was like a police action that became kind of a war, but we never technically called it a war. So I think it was more popular during the start, and of course decreased quickly as the war went on. But a bigger point I'm trying to make is not necessarily that the American government isn't interested in foreign policy. I think right now what we're seeing in the House with the decision atrophy in reaction to aid to Ukraine is an example of it leaking into our legislature. But my main concern is having American people, a citizenry, who are well informed enough about foreign policy, so when they hear somebody say, screw Europe, they can reflexively be like, that is insane, I need to stay away from that guy, that is stupid, I can't believe he would say something like that. That would danger our economy in the future of us possibly getting dragged into a global war by creating that uncertainty. I want people to vote for legislators based upon the knowledge that they will have a stable future for us on the geopolitical scene.
I think, I don't know if this is the right phrase for it. I think that there is something going on in America. Basically, simplification is very seductive in a way. Being able to say, oh, yeah, screw Europe. Well, why do we have to care about Ukraine? Why do we, I think people are maybe naturally even intuitively inclined towards that. And we see this in local domestic policy issues too. Or I guess this is also kind of international. Build the wall, lock her up. Just simple phrases, I think, really make people inclined to them. So I guess my question to you guys is how do we fight against, I don't say human nature, but this human inclinivity, I can't pronounce that word.
Inclination?
Inclination, yes. To want to simplify things to such an extent that we suddenly lose the nuances that are really important for policy making and basically policy building. I don't know if there's an answer.
It's a question about marketing. It's trying to find simple explanations for extremely complex problems, and sometimes those just don't exist. And on some issues, if you're a scam artist or a con man and you're willing to put on a better show with more lights and bells and whistles, you will have an advantage from a market standpoint, from marketability, to somebody who is an expert who knows what they're talking about, but they're going to have to give you a somewhat unsatisfactory answer because not everything has a super 100% satisfactory solution. And so the question is, in my opinion, what I like to do is just attempt to the best of your ability to embarrass those con men, to show them to be con men, to expose them as con men, and prop up experts who know what they're talking about.
So you don't think there should be like a progressive, almost populist response, like the progressives should come up with their
If you
ridiculous
can
three-word
simplify,
sound bites and shit like that?
if I read like a complicated Thomas Schelling book, some IR book that talks about all these theories and stuff, if I can simplify these theories to like a chess game or to like a checker game, as he has done in his books, that's great. But some situations are just not going to be possible for that. And I think I'd rather accept that and try to explain the situation and show the other people to be con artists than degrade myself and misrepresent something like IR, which could then have negative effects down the line. If I misrepresent a certain defense policy, if I misrepresent nuclear brinksmanship to people in order to try to explain the type of risk-taking behavior and the percentages of risk that nation states are willing to put themselves under in these situations, then that could lead to real problems down the line where they're making incorrect decisions about something that really determines the future of everyone.
What do you think, Destiny?
I think a lot of things. Getting people to care about foreign policy, it probably starts with not being so divided at home. I think that when we're at each other's throats and we can't even agree on what basic reality is domestically, I don't know how we're supposed to think about reality internationally. Like half the people in this country still probably think there were, massive amounts of Nazis and bioweapons labs in Ukraine, and that Azov is running the whole country, and there was a CIA planned coup in 2014 for Euromaidan. So yeah, I mean, as long as we have such huge stark contrasts at home with how we view the world factually, I don't see how we ever come together on like a foreign policy thing.
When you said something about how the left don't care that much about democracy, because when I say that about Republicans and their complacency about what Trump does and how much they're willing to sacrifice in terms of democratic values to get their way, I can totally see how progressives would do that to the same degree if they had the chance to. Because I noticed when the Queen died in the UK, the debates that followed that were very much left-wing people saying she could have done more with her power, right? And then you just ask a few questions and you can basically get them quite easily into a position of admitting that they would basically be okay with a dictatorship, right? Like, would you be okay if the Queen did this policy arbitrarily? Yeah. What about this one? What about this one? And then suddenly you've just got like someone accepting a dictator. But how would you compare those threats in the US, like Republicans and left-wingers, for being threats to democracy in the US?
I feel like we need to spend more time appreciating the system that we have. The system that we have, rather than the different like political ideologies that are fighting for power in the state. Because I think right now, people have basically completely and totally neglected the system. Like, they don't know how it works. They have no appreciation for it. And instead, it's just what tools can we use to enact whatever policy we want. Kind of like you said, I think that people would act like being an authoritative dictator was a bad thing, but if they're passing the policies that you want, I think people would largely be okay with that, which is a little bit frustrating.
What do you think is the biggest misconception with how the U.S. government works? Like, what do you think is the one that people just don't get, don't understand, guess wrong, whatever?
Our institutions are largely effective. They're largely a reflection of the people right now who are historically divided amongst themselves, and I think that's why there's a lot of gridlock and a lot of stuff that doesn't seem to be working that well. But yeah.
I think 3 branches. The amount of times I've had to hear Americans blame Biden for Roe v. Wade is just insane. I can't, Progressive commentators would use that. Or saying that like Obama could have codified Roe v. Wade, even though I don't think he ever had that supermajority to do it. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say foreign policy again. Foreign aid, Americans have a really perplexing view of foreign aid. Polling regularly shows that Americans believe that we spend between 20 to 25% of our budget on foreign aid. That's bizarre. It's almost delirious. It's around 1%. And so if we stopped scapegoating foreign aid for all of our economic woes, I think that would be nice.
Can I talk about punching left?
Whatever you want.
So this was Josiah's topic, but I was going to ask you, do you think when you have your fights like between left and right online, do you feel like you're doing it proportionately to the like political threat or power that they have, or do you have like other incentives or in your head or like other
I mean, it
reasons
depends
for doing
on
it?
what issues are popular at the time. It depends on who's existing in my particular sphere, and it depends on what we're in particular focusing on.
That's what I feel like I struggle with, is because when I used to watch you fight with leftists for the last like few years, I never really understood like the disproportionality of it, especially because of your leanings like politically, or more, probably definitely more left than right. But then I noticed myself, for some reason, there's just something so much more tempting about going after like far left extremism than right wing. But I wonder if that's because it's people that you hold to a higher standard, or if it's just because it's like it feels worse when critique comes from your own side.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two things. I think one is that they're just in your area more. Like it would be weird if you went to the Republican National Convention or something and you took out your phone and you were fighting, with far left people or something when you have so many Republicans around you to fight with, And then two, I think that because you are supposedly aligned more on core values, the differentiation in applied values is a lot more irritating. If you're like if you're a 15 an hour far left person and you're sitting next to a Republican who doesn't believe in minimum wage, and it's like, okay, well, you're dumb. But if you're sitting next to somebody that purportedly shares your values, they're center left or whatever, or another far left person, and they don't want a 15-hour minimum wage, well, now there's like a huge problem. Like the Republican's not supposed to agree with you. The Republican's not supposed to support minimum wage. It's not part of their values. But another left-leaning person like you should be. So something is really wrong with them or really wrong with you. And that's, I think, where a lot of the fighting comes from.
I always feel like when it comes to being in that specific area as well, because when far left people, they don't really I don't think they have really any power in like national politics, at least here in America. But this is one of the last countries on earth you're going to see like a socialist or communist revolution. But in social media, like in our space, they seem to have quite a lot of power, or at least a lot of influence. But at the end of the day, these are mostly people who are probably not going to vote, or if they do vote, they'll probably just vote Democrat.
Yeah,
So-
I was going to say their influence is definitely overblown. I feel like a lot of people just rather be keyboard warriors and go outside and actually like canvass and try to get people to vote. And
Whereas Republicans online, even though they're maybe harder to find or to get immediate access to, at least for me, they do vote and they do want to like maybe march on the Capitol again with a bit more practice this time.
Outside of like the burnt out hippie movement and those types of like older type of far leftists, there are more far leftists among very young people, but there's a few problems. The first problem is those people don't really turn out to vote at the same rates of much older people who are not far left at all. And so even if at a higher percentage on average, they are on the far left, if you, number one, reject electoral politics, then you're not going to turn out. So that's going to be a problem. You're not able to use that tool in your toolbox. And number two, just young people don't turn out generally. So I think that both of those things also further stunt the far left's ability to influence at least electoral politics directly. They do other things like direct action. I don't know how particularly effective that has been in the last few years, though.
I always feel like, I don't know if you two get this, I feel like it's so much harder to pull over or to like get changed minds from far left people, because at the end of the day, you're just really like a less, from where they're starting, you're just a less ideologically pure version of what they are. Whereas with right wingers, I feel like there's much more opportunity that you're actually exposing them to arguments that they maybe just haven't heard before. I don't know.
I strongly disagree. I feel like with a lot of right-wingers that I talk to, like I think a lot of them are just operating on a completely different basis of just like factual, a different basis of reality, or even like such a different base of morality. And even if you can introduce them to new arguments, I think a lot of them have incorporated, and this happens with the left too, but basically people incorporate these parties into their identity, and I think they're scared to change their identity. So then, like, it doesn't matter what you say. They've defined themselves as a Trumper, as a pro-MAGA, America first. So I think there's like a deeper psychological issue going on here that you have to like have these people either expand their social network, their communities, get in touch, like having friends on literally a different side. Otherwise, just giving them these arguments, I don't think is enough to make them change their identification.
Yeah, but I'm just from personal experience of just like because I'm guessing once you do enough arguments, you get a bunch of like emails or DMs being like, "Oh, you changed, but I'm from this. I'm from this political alignment, and I used to believe this, but you've changed my mind on this, or you've made me consider this differently." I feel like getting that from like center right people or maybe right wing people is much easier than getting it from far left people. I don't know, is that the same with you or you?
I've had a lot more center-right people, sometimes libertarians, because I do go to libertarian conventions, come up to me and say, "Okay, you changed my mind about this foreign policy issue, or maybe we should send her when we do that." But I don't really convince many far-left people. I think, though, probably at a higher rate than you guys, because I hang out or at least I talk to people, and I'm willing to fight them on this a lot more.
I think you're right, but for a hidden reason. I think it depends on the type of content you engage with and who you argue with and which fan bases you're interacting with. They give you an ability to kind of persuade people. So when I was debating a lot of far left people, I actually got quite a few emails from people saying like, hey, like I used to be a big Hassan fan, I used to be a big Russian. Some people here say it like, oh yeah, I was falling into the really far left, like communist, whatever bullshit, and now I'm not anymore. And when I was fighting a lot of red pillars or a lot of far right people, I would get just the opposite. When I'm like going on my rounds like debating Nazis, I'm not getting far left people being like, hey, thank you so much, I was about to become a full-on socialist. I'm getting people on the right. So I think that you do have a higher chance right now on the internet of convincing people on the right than convincing people on the left, but it's not because people on the right are more easily convinced. I don't know if that's true. I'm not even sure. That's probably not true, but it's probably just more because those are the only people willing to fight with you. Like it's pretty hard for me to turn Hassan or Vosh fans when they will never talk to me, which is like a good strategy on their part, because if they did, they would lose fans.
But I'm guessing
or if they
like
get caught.
some of your React videos get more views than the Hassan or Vosh videos themselves.
Yeah, but that's not
So it's
Hassan
just
and
like-
Vosh fans coming to watch my videos. Those are
Okay.
other people that like to dunk on the lol cows
Yeah, that
and
makes
watch me
sense.
farm the nice milk from both of them
Yeah.
into my buckets.
So that's what, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you do that, it's not really with the mission of trying to bring far left people into a more
No, but
sensible
honestly, God, I'm just trying to afford my child
entertainment.
support.
Yeah, okay,
you
yeah.
know. It's a
I
rough
thought
one
that. I
out
just
there.
wanted to know. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
No, but I
Makes
mean,
sense.
truly, like the audiences that you'll convert are going to be reflective on who you're fighting with, I think, at any given point in time. If I were to go on a tear, like right now, so like for Israel-Palestine is the thing I'm debating a lot. I'm getting a decent chunk of pro-Palestinian people that are saying certain things, like, oh, I was like really, anti-genocide and I'm pro-genocide of all the Palestinians, stuff like that. All the very far left people. But when I have, I've had one or two arguments, I think, with Israeli people, and I've gotten a couple people, I think literally a couple, I think just two, that have emailed me and they're like, hey, I never really thought about like the settlement stuff as much before, or like, hey, I can kind of see like how if you're a Palestinian and you've lived in, essentially apartheid conditions for 60 years, how it may be a good plan to a horrible feeling of being trapped somewhere.
Yeah,
and never
but
to get out.
that's what I worry about, is because as far as the pro-Hamas left go and all that, again, I don't know exactly how much influence they have, but as far as like the pro-settlement or like hardline Zion, I think they do actually have a lot of influence. There's the whole thing now about how, I guess it's like X number of Israelis would be okay with settling back in Gaza, like moving settlements back in, and it's not a majority, but it doesn't have to be a majority. It just has to be enough that they would do it, and there needs to be the right government in place to not stop them, which I think is.
Or to encourage them.
I think that's quite possible. Yeah, I think like if they started setting up camp within a few months, would Netanyahu's government really stop them or try to like evict them? Probably, maybe
Come
not.
down to international pressure.
And that's quite. So I feel like again, as far as like tangible threats, like the very extreme right pro-Israeli side, I think is really, really dangerous right now. But at least in my own personal space, I feel like I have to go out and actively seek that. Whereas finding pro-Hamas leftists, like they just appear everywhere. They're just like, there's the first thing in my feed on Reddit and Discord and Twitter. They're the first ones in my chat asking for debates. And as far as finding like a right-wing like Israeli to argue with, I actually have to go and seek it out.
I think
do you feel like you have the same issue, or do you just feel like you're just more aligned with Israel and that's why you end up where?
No, I mean, it just comes down to who's available to debate. I would love to debate that traveling. Is his name Traveling Israeli? I always say
Traveling Israel, yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy.
But he doesn't want to debate, yeah.
He doesn't?
No.
Wow.
No. Probably because things like the settlements are completely and totally indefensible, or Israel's like really aggression, expansion, whenever they have the opportunity to do so, and any far-right Zionist would know that. So,
I think.
Well, I was going to ask, when I saw that list of names on the Palestine-Israel debate suggestions from Lex, so like on the Palestine side, you've got like Finkelstein, and on the right-wing side, on the Israel side, there's you, there's Benny Morris, but then there's also Ben Shapiro, and like I'm just wondering, like if there were the right combination of pro-Israel people, do you feel like you would feel more comfortable on the pro-Palestine side, or
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I would never, because Lex was asking me for partners or whatever, and I was like, I'm not doing that debate with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to end up siding probably with Finkelstein more. What were you were going to say something like?
Yeah, I think a lot of young people, particularly when it comes to young people getting radicalized and like really quickly radicalized about topics they don't know much about, I think a lot of it is social media specifically and how the algorithm works, on how it'll suck you into a rabbit hole where it'll show you exactly what you want to see, whatever. Make sure that you stay on the website, so it keeps giving you that information. And people talk about things like the added context on Twitter, but those things get added like 2, 3, 4 days after the fact, after 90 to 95% of the people had already seen the post. And in these social media bubbles, not only can you get misinformed just due to the fact that, you know, social media has lower journalistic standards of excellence than most published media. There's also the problem of course, being trapped in a rabbit hole where everybody around you agrees with you, and then you go in the real world or you see somebody who doesn't, and it makes you completely flip out. It's impossible for you to register or understand it.
How did your canvassing go?
I think in general my canvassing went well. Obviously there's a lot of doors that you knock that nobody's home, but when you do find the people that are there, it's nice to hear them when they're like, yeah, like I voted, or yeah, I'm registered to vote. It's like, hell yeah. A lot of them said that, actually, it was quite interesting. A lot of them said that their number one issue that they cared about most was democracy, funny enough. So I was surprised to hear that.
Is that where you learned that? Were you canvassing
People
together?
care about democracy?
Yeah.
Unironically, yeah, it was kind of cringe. I said it to a couple people. I was like, that's really cringe. You should have seen this one dude. I knocked on the door, and he came out. He was a young guy. Brown, can I say that? Yeah, and he opens the door.
Yeah, you can say that.
And I'm like, oh, wow, hey, how's it going? And he's like, very, very young, okay? This guy's like mid-20s. And I'm like, hey, you know, are you all registered to vote? He's like, absolutely. You know, me and my whole household are. And I'm like, oh, cool. What's the most important issue for you guys that you guys are voting on? And he looks at me and he's like, let me tell you about Operation Cast Lead. And I was like, oh my God. I had my Scars of War, Wounds of Peace book with me and everything. I threw my backpack on the ground. I must have been fist fighting for like 20 minutes before Aaron finally pulled me off and went to the next house. It was crazy.
In my experience, I got Trump and I got local issues. And the local issue for me was parking when engaging with people. So I think a lot of times when you do this canvassing, you might be surprised because politics is local.
Oh, also, unironically, something I heard a lot, which I'm glad, is abortion. I think
Because that was a recent issue in Ohio with the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
And had the Republicans
Hopefully
got their
that's
way
national.
with the change in the actual, wanting to have a supermajority, 60% plus, had they got their way with that, then that bill wouldn't have passed, because it only passed by 57%.
Well, isn't it wild that, you know, the British can vote to do Brexit and tank their economy, and everybody can see they're obviously about to go into an iceberg, but they don't turn the other way. But then when people vote to, you know, maybe give a woman the right to choose, you got to do everything to avoid the will of the people to
Well, the
stop
best
that.
argument against orthodox Marxism was always that material conditions actually doesn't matter that much to most people. It was a really common talking point in the Brexit campaign for people to say, like, yeah, if this means our GDP gets a couple of percentage points lower, I don't care. We'll have our freedom.
seems like people-
nationalism
people
is
care
so
now,
much
it
more.
seems like.
Yeah, but not, yeah, again, like nationalism. If you ask Brexit voters if you regret your decision, they will absolutely say no.
A lot of them do.
So-
It's like
yeah, a lot of-
67% of the British population now believe Brexit was a mistake.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, why, can you do anything by referendum in the UK? Could you like vote to abolish
You could
the
technically
NHS?
do it by
Or
referendum.
vote to
yeah.
make like airplanes illegal? That's just so weird that you could do such a major policy decision by referendum.
Yeah.
How much
Isn't that very
misinformation was
democratic,
spread
though,
about the
over
NHS and how much more money they would get.
I think the referendum just has to get approval from the House of Commons. I think they have to agree to have the referendum, and then you just have it. Yeah. So yeah, you could.
House of Commons 51%? Or is it?
I don't know. It might be a supermajority, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was 51, because that's how parties pass legislation
That's so
in the UK.
dumb.
Well, you know,
The helicopter's here.
we're a democracy with Democrats, so
Yeah. Well,
Helicopter time.
that's at least that.
thank you guys for talking to me and having me on. I'll see you later. Keep canvassing.
Thanks for coming.
Phone bank with Progressive Victory.
Yes.
So who's staying and who's going off?
Find out after this.
After your
Wow.
got him.
Twitch streamer and conflict journalist. I'm with Aya Really Important, who is a legislative commentator on Twitch, and we are here with City Council member Mika Owen. So I'd like to welcome on today's program with Progressive Victory. Thank you so much for coming out. First question I would have is, what first motivated you to get involved in city politics?
That's a great question. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me. It's so nice to be able to have conversations like this around different platforms or connecting with new people. Because as it relates to democracy, my journey has been one of really showing up. It's been one where I grew up in a household just, about giving back and service to others. I went to great schools that taught me that as well. And so, while I didn't grow up thinking specifically about politics, I thought about what community meant for me. A light bulb moment was 2016 when, and I went to a school that taught government and all those things. And so at 18, registered to vote and been voting ever since. But I knew going one step further was also showing up and supporting other candidates that ultimately it's about people that align with your values, and you show up and you support that. And so 2016 was a light bulb moment when I decided to organize on Hillary Clinton's campaign here in Cincinnati, and it was the most amazing experience. But it also taught me that democracy is truly fragile, and it takes all of us to participate in democracy to strengthen it. And so I thought about, what does that look like for me? And so from a personal level, I went into local government at that time. I went into our court system. I come from a faith tradition that my bishop has taught me that, in order to change systems, we have to show up in those systems and be advocates of change and for people. And so as a result of that, I just kind of thought about, what are the other things happening in my community that I truly care about? 2018, I saw so many women get elected to Congress. That was very inspiring for someone to have enough curiosity to say, what is this other angle of democracy? And so 2020, organized again, and I helped to elect Democrats up and down the ballot in 2018. 2020, decided to help people navigate voting in a pandemic, and so co-founded the Greater Cincinnati Voter Collaborative, where we truly built coalition with nonpartisan organizations, civic institutions, all the ones you can think of, ACLU, League of Women Voters, so many, and we did a special thing. We created an infrastructure where we drove so many people to the polls, 100 rides to the polls, first time ever in Cincinnati, and we exist to keep building something that is sustainable. But it was all those things that then translate to, wow, I'm looking at national news, but it's always all politics are local, and the issues that you're looking at, they start in your own backyard. And so for me, also looking at leadership in Cincinnati and the style of leader that I am, just took a real, introspective look at what I could bring, what I care about, what I'm passionate about, and how I could see my leadership in Cincinnati. So that's a little bit of the short answer, but it was a journey. It wasn't an overnight decision.
Can I ask you, what's that like going from the outside to the inside? Because now you're in the legislative body. And I know what it's like being an activist, and you go to the meetings and you're demanding stuff, and maybe you're not seeing everything that's going on and the deals that have to be made and just the compromise. So what is that like now that you're on the inside? Does it change anything about you or your approach?
Well, it's not changing anything about me, but it's giving me more resolve to be the person to continue to fight for the things that I believe in. Now, on the inside, yes, it is about relationships. I mean, that is how things get done. And I think that's just synonymous in any sector of the world, right? In any industry. And so there are times where there are some give and takes, because when you are agitating power structures, those things become uncomfortable. And certainly if you're someone like I would think of myself as someone who is there for change and not status quo, then it's really the value of building relationships in an authentic way where trust is established is what I'm really learning.
That's interesting.
A lot of different people have difficulties when first getting involved with politics, especially the economically disadvantaged. And I know particularly I've talked to a lot of politicians who are single mothers, and getting into politics as a single mom is extremely difficult. What are some of the difficulties that come with that?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was grateful. That is a really great question. I appreciate it. I was grateful that, my son, I happen to be a single mom. He's grown now. And so, I did not have the challenge of having a little person and running for office. But certainly I think about the equity in which this, even in our own politics, there is inequity. And so having to show up for candidate things and interviews and all of the things and being a mom of a little person and childcare and all of those pieces, those things matter. It matters for someone who doesn't have the time to take off of work to do these things, or maybe even working more than one job, but still feeling like they can make a difference in their community. So it's certainly incumbent upon us to make sure we are eliminating these barriers moving forward.
Absolutely. I know that you are on the environmental board, the Environmental Climate and Infrastructure Board. What are some priorities climate-wise that you have for the city of Cincinnati?
Wow, that is a big list. I am really excited that I get to lead the first ever climate committee in Cincinnati, climate, environment, and infrastructure. And you know, for me, over even the past 2 years, it's been an amazing journey and deep dive into what climate change really is, how that looks at a local level, how we know that there are disparities in our own neighborhoods based on climate change, based on being a Black community, a brown community, a low-income community, a frontline community. And so, you know, for me, it is about, so Cincinnati, we have a Green Cincinnati plan for one, which I am grateful for the work that the city has been doing even before I got to City Hall. So it makes this moment very special now, where we're elevating this conversation and we are implementing, we are institutionalizing not only resilience and sustainability, but equity in this conversation. And so when we think about the work of educational institution like the University of Cincinnati, who commissioned our climate equity indicators, which is truly a snapshot of every community. Tree canopy, what are the health metrics? Is it a community, what is the percentage of renters versus homeowners? So these become really authentic conversations when we're talking about policies coming from City Hall, like how much tree canopy do we have? And when we have neighborhoods that have 70% tree canopy and neighborhoods that have less than 1% tree canopy, I think we know what we should be doing. And so I've got a list of things. One is, you know, buildings and efficiency.
Could I ask you specifically about the green space? Because green space is an issue I care about a lot. For my city, I cared a lot about it. How important is the preservation of green space in Cincinnati for air quality control and temperature control, especially in Black communities?
I mean, all of the above. If we're talking about living in neighborhoods where we are reducing urban heat island effect, which, you know, we can continue to see the threat of what that means for young people who might be growing up in that environment, and we talk about gun violence. Like, the built environment is so important to how people live, the quality of air, the green space, mental health. All of these things are so interrelated. And so when I think about the things on my list to do as it relates to climate change, everything is impacted. The way we move, where we live, what we build in our communities. And so, you know, I want to see a Cincinnati where young people, no matter what your zip code is, because we also know social determinants of health, your zip code can determine that. And so I want to see a Cincinnati where young people have access to all of the quality things in the environment that help them to grow and to thrive.
You seem so energetic and so positive. How do you share that with others, especially like young people? They seem so checked out. They feel like things are so doom and gloom. How do you combat that? How do you get people motivated?
Well, you know, one, I value people. I value young people especially, and knowing that, you know, we are all responsible for those who come behind us. And for me, I'm always looking for young people who are just curious enough to show up. I'll share this story with you. It's a very personal and emotional one, but, you know, just speaking of young people. So when I was running the first time for office, you know, I'm at the Board of Elections and collecting signatures to get on the ballot. I met a young man at that moment. Him and his mom, they were standing in line ready to go vote. And it was such an authentic exchange. And I said, hey, are you, he's like, how can I get involved? I'm like, I would love for you to get involved, right? Like, let's exchange numbers here. And so we did that. And this is a young man who just showing up with his mom to vote, never did anything else in politics or what have you. So he shows up and volunteers and walks a parade with me, you know, all of these things. The unfortunate end to this story is that he was someone who lost his life due to gun violence. And so, you know, the important lesson is, what are the doors that we are opening for people, while we're also looking at all of these social factors that affect people in our community, which is for me the upstream approach of why my work is so important in Cincinnati. But I think it comes back to valuing people and knowing that young people, you do have a space here. You know, politics, it can seem so like esoteric. What does that mean? What does that look like? Just showing up and people opening the door is the first step to that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come out here.
Thank you.
Everybody here really appreciates it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to cut to a quick break, and we'll be right back, guys.
Welcome back. I'm Dylan Burns, war journalist and Twitch streamer. I'm again here with IRI, legislative commentator on Twitch and YouTube, and the ever so lovely Riley Grace Rochong, who has a history working on, I know, multiple campaigns. She was involved in the campaign to elect the now governor of Maryland, turning Maryland from a red governorship to a blue governorship. We were at the party where that was announced with the balloons falling from the ceiling. It was a great time.
That's right, we were.
We were. You invited me.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic time. What was it like canvassing today in Ohio, and why did you come out to Ohio to canvass?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Dylan and IRI. I mean, like, you know, so why did I come out here? First, I mean, this is my home state, you know, like this is where I was born and raised. Granted, Cincinnati, bit of a hop and a skip away from Sandusky, Ohio, like the Huron sort of area. But I mean, like I came out here because, you know, first and foremost, like this is my home state, you know, like this is where I was born and I have a really deep invested interest in it. Also, I came out because my mother, Alicia Rochong, is running for the 89th district up for the State House of Representatives in Ohio. So, you know, I came out with her so I could be able to support her in that as well. And I have a lot of really good hope for her. She's being supported by the state Democratic Party. And there's a lot of really good promise about her being able to flip a current red seat in the House over to blue. So
that's due to redistricting and a little bit of back and forth Republican controversy.
Yes, so she's uncontested in her primary, but but the Republicans are not uncontested in their primary, so they're duking it out right now. But you know, we're out here, we're still working. We want to make sure we give it as good a run as we can.
What was it like? I understand you canvassed today?
Yes.
What was it like canvassing in Ohio after being away in the better state like Maryland for so long?
Well, I don't know about that one. That's a whole other.
Well,
anyway,
that's not debatable. That's as an interviewer, I have to call out lies and misinformation, and sorry, that's just a fact.
don't make me pick between my two favorite states. All right.
Well, I'm picking for you.
I've knocked doors in other states and my home state, like my own neighborhoods and
Yeah.
stuff. So I know it's a different vibe. So like, yeah, what was that like?
So I mean, like honestly, I'll compare with like my experience door knocking in Maryland last year, or last year, 2 years ago. It's been a whirlwind of a couple of years. When I door knocked for like Westmore and other campaigns around that same time. So my experience door knocking today was actually like really pleasant. I was able to get talked to a decent amount of people, and overall, I think that this was an incredibly blue area for us to canvas in.
I saw a lot of BLM signs.
Yes, there are a lot of BLM signs. I did see one like trans rights flag, which was like
Yeah.
you know, it's something that we talk about a lot online, but seeing people like kind of represent that IRL is still like relatively newer.
Sure.
So I thought that was pretty exceptional. But yeah, I mean, like most of the people, I think everyone I spoke to said that they were already registered to vote, which was great. Like they were, you know, it wasn't like I don't know, I can't remember the last time. Like no, like the people here are like really proactively involved, which was really good to see.
Yeah.
And then the issues, there's like a bit of ambiguity about like some of the people's like their main issues that they were focusing on. Some people said like, oh, you know, I'll research it later. Oh, I'll figure out more later, which, you know, like is probably honestly par for the course for like most working class Americans. Especially like younger people where it's like, you know, dealing with school and work and what have you. But a lot of the really common things we saw people care about were they cared about Trump. Honestly, some people just said like, literally, I'm just voting to get Trump out of office and that's the only thing I care about.
Hey, whatever works.
Yeah, but then there were a couple other people, like I had a long conversation with one woman and she was really, really pleasant to talk to, but she gave me like a really like, in-depth sort of answers. Like the main thing she cared about was abortion, but then she talked about, you know, like taxes were important to her, pharmaceutical prices were important to her, the environment was important to her. And I mean, like, you know, she went down like I don't want to say like a laundry list, but she gave like a couple, but they were meaningful, right? Like they showed me like what a lot of people, I think that she's probably a bit more representative of where especially like older Americans are, who are a bit more left-leaning, who aren't like super hardline like MAG or what have you. But overall, it was really nice. I will say one funny thing that happened was, and this is kind of a good problem to have, right? Was we eventually we were knocking on so many doors. Eventually, we came up to knock on one door, and the people came out like, "Oh, sorry, someone already came out and told us about it." And I was like, that's strange because it wasn't reflected in like the app reviews, and so we're like, okay, it must have been like a bug or something. But then we went next door. And I mean, like basically,
that's a line I use though when people call me, or I'm like, I already signed up.
Yeah. And so I was wondering about that. So then I went next door and I talked to another lady, and like one of the nicest ladies I had spoken to literally the entire day. But she was like, yeah, like this awkward guy came out here and like asked us like, hey, like what do y'all care about for the election? And I was like, oh, okay. And so I think that she was talking to someone who was like one of the newer canvassers. And so it was really nice because then she was like, okay, but I really want to know what you're doing. And so I was able to be like, oh, well, progressive victory. I mean, like, you know, we're activating young people, like people who probably haven't been as involved in politics before. And we're just trying to get people out to vote. And she was like, oh my God, that is so cool. And it was just like a really wholesome moment, you know, like a bunch of people who haven't been as involved in politics, like getting into the swing of it, you know?
You know, as we're kind of the first wave of canvassers here in Ohio, and I think we're across the country, the first wave of canvassers are going out. And something that's really important about this first wave is experiencing the inaccessible homes. You know, in the minivan, oh, that house just isn't there anymore. It doesn't exist. I can't find it on the list. Oh, this house has dogs that aren't letting us by. The no trespassing. In a way, and I've been saying this all day, we take it on the chin for the next person who comes after us so they can be more effective.
I mean, like, there are a lot of houses I walked up to, and mind you, like, you know, you always hear, especially online, like, you know, to not judge based off of appearances or what have you, but, like, you really do see that come to play when you go out canvassing, because there's a lot of houses you see where there hasn't been a lot of work on them, or there might be there was one house that we went to where there was like we don't call the police, and there's like a firearm under it, like it's kind of doormat, and it's like,
you knocked
damn.
on that door?
I knocked on that door.
I stay away when I see like no trespassing.
No, I'm
like, okay.
Well, I mean,
here's a flyer.
But here's the thing, though. Like, I knocked on the door, and the guy came out, and he was again like super nice, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, like I'm already registered to vote. Yeah, fuck Trump, and I'll see you at the polls."
Based.
You know, so it's like you just cannot. I mean, like, you know, sometimes those can be useful heuristics, but you know, like that was just to me, like a really good example where it's like not what you would necessarily expect.
Yeah, my experience is mostly people don't answer, and that's okay. I don't answer my door very often, but you still leave a flyer, and I've read that it increases turnout by like 1%, even just leaving a flyer.
Sure.
And then a couple people come, we're already registered, but then you have a couple nice conversations, and that makes the whole experience worth it. Just those one or two people. That's it. It could be a guy walking his dogs down the street. So
I had an experience of somebody answering the door. It was an older gentleman, and he made clear to me, like, I'm center right. I'm right.
Okay.
I'm center right. I voted multiple different ways in each election, but I will not let that man back in the White House. I'm voting against him. It's my main issue. And then that was that. I mean, there's a lot of people that I found here that are. I was concerned that people would forget how bad the Trump presidency is and how worse it would be in a second term, considering not only is. I remember the first term in the lead up to Trump when they were saying, don't worry, he'll surround himself with experts, trying to convince everybody who was kind of concerned. And he did, but then he fired the experts, and then he fired the replacements to the experts, where this time I feel like he has his ducks in a row, and he has an idea of what he wants to do. And so that's something that really concerns me, but I was worried that with 3-4 years, people sometimes tend to change their mind about past presidents given a little time. Like Bush has a generally positive approval rating now. Does that mean people now support the Iraq War or support? No, it just means that their opinions have changed. Thankfully, at least in this area, it doesn't seem to be the case.
We have another canvasser who's going to join us, a guest here, content creator, so we'll bring her on here in a sec. We're going to be cycling in some people, guys, so
Welcome.
Hey, hi.
hey. Jasmine, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Do you want to introduce yourself?
With you. Yeah, my name's Jasmine Jafar. I'm an OnlyFans creator, and I've never actually done anything like this. It's something I've always wanted to do. I always had a lot of super politically active, very progressive friends in law school. I grew up in Portland, and it feels like I kind of always gravitate towards like that type of person. So I feel like it's interesting that I've done so in this space too, especially since I don't stream politics or anything. And I actually, canvassing is so outside my comfort zone because I don't ever I never cold call people or cold approach anyone. So I remember you were showing me how it was done, and it was really interesting to see how people responded, because the people that did open the door seemed to overwhelmingly be friendly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who just wouldn't. I was telling you I wouldn't because I watched so much creepy doorbell camera footage. And I just feel like I should never open my door now because it's all something. But it was really nice to just be along for the process.
And how's the whole, just being around all these canvassers and all these people that are excited?
I really like it. I was just thinking about how it's a really great way to garner a sense of community. I feel like, especially throughout our country's history and stuff, and just history in general, a lot of times it seems like those communities were so centered around religion and stuff. So seeing a lot of people come together and make friends and have a community for something like this is really heartwarming to me, and I would hope more people would do it. It's just so hard to it's no one wants to join a club a lot of the times because it seems lame, but then once you do it, you're like, this is really fun and more people should do it. So
it takes a lot of guts to come out to one of these things, so I applaud everybody who does it, and most people have a great time.
yeah.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure. So, what motivated you to come out and do canvassing? What was the thing that made you I really want to be involved in this?
I always wanted, I was always the person that I never would have the idea, but if my friends asked me to do something and I felt like it was a good cause and I should be there, I always do it. Okay. So Kyla reached out to me. I've streamed with Destiny a few times, and I've just been friends with Pixie and some of the other people that were organizing it, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely something outside my comfort zone. But for a long time while I was on my lawyer, I'm also a lawyer, and I never wanted to be a lawyer, but I just did it because I was always just doing what everyone wanted, never wanted to get outside my comfort zone, doing what my parents wanted. So making such a drastic career shift into OnlyFans, now I just tell myself anything outside of my comfort zone, any kind of opportunities I have to just be around different kind of people, do something like this that I feel is important, I want to always say yes to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Are there any top issues for OnlyFans creators that they care about?
Yeah, so internet censorship is huge for us. Trump in 2018, I believe, signed Sesta Fosta, which significantly and me coming from the background I did, being in one of the most privileged groups in society, lawyers, growing up, that, and then going into a very marginalized community as sex worker, even though I myself am very privileged in this community, it definitely made me want to use my platform to be an advocate for those issues, and just seeing how the banking pressures, regulatory pressures have increased. There's been a big push for internet censorship, which has been pushing not safe for work creators, online sex workers more and more into the margins, and pushing some of them to get back out into the streets and to more dangerous situations under the guise of stopping trafficking and child safety, when a lot of the times these bills don't even help that issue because they just push everything underground and they harm consensual sex work. So there's this big issue of conflating consensual sex work with trafficking and child abuse, which
I
happens.
was about to say, like, I feel like OnlyFans and like sex workers get the same blame as like the border. Like you're blamed for everything that's wrong
yeah.
in society. Like just like our southern border, right? Like all Republicans will say that's where all the problems are. All society's problems come from there.
I mean, every time I go on the internet, like I'm on Instagram, people are like, there are kids on this app, and I'm like, well, you know, like I don't know what I mean. Like it should be a place that adults can go to and like, you know, promote. Like we get banned off everything. We get platformed all the time. Most of the other girls I know have like 3 different phones with so many different accounts. And we're a group that people don't really care about much.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, this action on the internet has harmed OnlyFans girls. A lot of people don't like us.
Well, and you don't have a voice. You don't have someone pushing back, representing.
And we don't have it's hard for us to organize because we're all so split apart. It's not like we have an OnlyFans headquarters that we go to where we have like networking opportunities a lot. And a lot of people do this secretly, which I totally understand. So getting sex workers to actually get together, organize, be a voting group that people like, be constituents that people actually care about is hard. And a lot of people, but I think with this push that we're getting from the other side of like censoring the internet, like we're always worried, like the only places they let you even post like nudity is the only major platform is X now and Reddit, and people are always worried, like when is Reddit gonna pull the plug? What happened with Tumblr? What happened with OnlyFans in 2021 where they were like, oh, we need to ban this kind of content because one of the banks was gonna pull out.
You know,
a lot of sex workers, sorry, I just one more thing, a lot of them, they have issues even because a lot of their banks have like morality clauses. So they will, so they actually get kicked out. Like even accepting OnlyFans money, which is perfectly legal, from like major banks, like Bank of America's done it, Chase has done it. So credit unions seem to be a little bit. So that's like advice that a lot of us get is to start banking with them. We're not allowed on apps like PayPal. We're not allowed on Venmo.
Really?
Yeah, we're not allowed to take, it's against their terms of service. So it's like it's already so hard on social media to like, because we don't, OnlyFans doesn't promote us, we have to promote us, but it seems like every platform wants us off. They want to use us because we garner views and we get big followings, but they, you know, we're the first ones that they're like, yeah, you can't do this. And a lot of sex workers deal with, we never know when like the rug is going to be pulled out from under us. It's not like we're on the internet selling or talking about how our favorite lipstick. That's a much easier thing to do on the internet than promote an OnlyFans account.
You were talking earlier about these websites which sex workers use in order to contact customers independent of working on the street and having someone pull up to them. Why is that important? Is this a safety issue where they're able to filter through who they do business with and who they don't do business with? Why is that important to
so
creators?
One of the big downfalls of like one of the big bad consequences of SESTA FOSTA was that it basically cut at sections 230 of the Communications Act, and it made all platforms liable for any facilitation of prostitution, which, even if it's consensual. It even cut a lot of sex educators work because they're like, oh, what if even advocating for legalization of sex work is now seen as facilitating? So a lot of different kinds of content creators were cut with that. And then also like Reddit forums, like there was Reddit forums and threads for groups for sex workers who they would do like vetting through that. They would talk to each other, they would give each other tips. It was a safety thing. So actually, now that they've done some studies at the effects of SESTA FOSTA now that it's like 5 years later, and they're finding like that, it did substantially hurt sex workers' incomes, and a lot of them were forced back onto the streets. A lot of them, there has even been increases in like San Francisco in violence committed towards sex workers because it was a way people could screen, and it was a way that we could be in a community without being out on the street because our whole jobs are online. So having Reddit cut, like this didn't affect me, but having like, again, this affects the most marginalized members of the community. So a lot of the violence that's perpetuated on a lot of these people do tend to be the ones that are the most marginalized. So people in the LGBTQ community, people of color, etc. So me being on like even if I'm feeling the effects and I'm like probably as privileged as you could get into this industry, these effects are wide sweeping.
Did you know all this going into it, or were your eyes open once you got in there?
Yeah, I mean, like even though I think I'm more educated than the average person on a lot of stuff that's going on because I'm a lawyer. I remember this bill, and I was just like, oh, stop human trafficking. If you don't look into it, you're like, that sounds good, right? Like you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, that's right. So that's a way that they really, but then if you actually look at it and you look at the effects of it and how it's affecting, how it's conflated, like, there is this idea people have that no one would choose this kind of work, which is just not true. Some people, I don't want anyone in this kind of work. I want us to have opportunity and people to do what they choose, but this idea that all sex workers are abused or pimps or, it's not true. And a lot of these bills conflate consensual sex work with trafficking.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
It feels like, though, not only is it not that this is not only true about sex workers all being put in, like being pimped in this way,
Yeah.
but if anything, it feels like if these platforms are taken down, it could push sex workers to go back to more
That is-
traditionally pimping type sex work.
It's literally so funny because like when Sesta Fosta was, like even the Department of Justice spoke out against it. Like so many human rights, even victims spoke against it. Like one person said that it was like having a bunch of cockroaches and then you turn on the lights and all the cockroaches like go into like they're all like hiding in the shadows now. So yeah, it didn't help. Actually, I think we had one case that was even brought, because a lot of the stuff that was illegal before was actually it's the route they pursue anyway. So this legislation did nothing. I think it was used one time and the case was like dismissed. So it hasn't even done anything to help real trafficking victims, and it's done a lot to hurt sex workers.
Dang. Well, listen, Riley, Jasmine, thank you guys for coming on here and chat with us about this. We're going to wrap this up for just a moment, take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, my name is Lynn Burns. I am a war journalist and Twitch streamer. I am here with legislative correspondent, commentator. I am really important.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you to have me. I'm happy to have you here with me. And we are interviewing a city council member of Cincinnati. Could you introduce yourself so people could know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Albee. I am a newly elected council member in Cincinnati as of January.
Wow,
Fantastic.
congrats.
Thank
Straight
you.
to the point. I know that you have some involvement with Moms Demand Action. Could you
Yeah.
explain that?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking about that. So I was formerly the local group lead. So for those who aren't familiar, Moms Demand Action is a grassroots organization nationally that focuses on gun violence prevention and gun safety. And we have over 10 million people nationally, which is bigger than the gun lobby, which I'm proud to say. And it's all 100% volunteer based. We do a lot of work advocating for gun laws that we think are going to make people safer and pushing back against gun laws we think are going to make people less safe. And unfortunately in Ohio, we spend a lot of time in that less safe bucket when we're working with the state legislature. But that's really been my foray into politics and working closely with our city government here in Cincinnati was through that work.
Why did you pick that issue? Why is that at the forefront for you?
Yeah, I think, I found myself a handful of years ago after one mass shooting after another, angry, empty tweets and Facebook posts. And at some point I realized I was just yelling into the void. And I really wanted a way to channel my frustration, my anger. And that was a really great organization. And I keep telling people every city I've lived in and loved has experienced a mass shooting. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Chicago. And it's just so heartbreaking to know that we are becoming a city and a nation of gun violence survivors. And I really want to be part of the solution, not just screaming online.
My mic's working.
Minor
no.
detail. Minor detail.
Have you seen any progression on that issue in the last couple of years? Or I know you're really new to the city council,
Yeah.
but even in your short time there, have you seen any progress?
Yeah, well, so I should say federally last year we passed our first gun safety bill.
Safer Communities
Yep,
Act.
exactly. Yep, and that had a lot of great stuff. So that was a big win. Thank you to the Biden administration and to having everyone on board there. Locally, I should say, Ohio's a tough state. So for those who aren't aware of state politics in Ohio, we have a gerrymandered state legislature. And basically, so when you do raw vote counts, it's about 40, our votes overall are about 45% Democrat, 55% Republican. When it shakes out in the state house, the Republicans get about 90% of the seats. Yep. So they're very disproportional there. And what that turns into is we've got these extremist lawmakers who are safe in their seats, and they keep pushing towards the edges. And because of that, the state of Ohio has passed all the worst gun bills you can think of. Permitless carry.
Yikes.
Shoot first bills. They call them stand your ground. We call them shoot first because it's permission to shoot first. Arming teachers. They're trying to, get rid of sales tax on firearms. Anything you can think of, the state legislature here has tried to push. So when I say Moms Demand Action has been doing a lot of work pushing back against bad bills, that's really what I mean. And they do it despite law enforcement here locally. Literally, our Sheriff McGuffey, went up with Moms Demand Action. There are 200 of us, and we all testified and said, do not pass permitless carry. And permitless carry means you can get a gun, no background check, no permit, no nothing, and carry it concealed. So that's been really challenging. And just to say it, since I'm on a roll here, Ohio is a preemption state. So that basically means the law at the state level, specifically for guns and other things, overrules, preempts what we here can do at local municipality level. With that said, in the fall of 2022, we had a ruling from a judge outside of Columbus that let Columbus keep some of their gun safety laws on the books under this thing called home rule. And home rule means that cities can pass laws that are best for us. And Cincinnati has taken advantage of that. And so last year in February, we passed 2 gun safety bills, ordinances, one requiring secure firearm storage, specifically when there are kids around. So you gotta lock up your guns if you got kids in the house. And the other one preventing those convicted of domestic violence from owning or using a firearm.
Okay.
So we've had some progress.
All right, cool.
Ohio is right in the middle of the Rust Belt and has dealt with, over the past few decades, the loss of a lot of manufacturing jobs. My family left Ohio due to the loss of manufacturing jobs, due to the introduction of Chinese steel. How do you encourage investment in Ohio to help bring back jobs in cities like Cincinnati without encouraging a race to the bottom tax-wise like many other cities and states have done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you think about the state holistically versus Cincinnati, so I'm going to talk about Cincinnati because that's my purview. And I think we can do a couple things. One, kind of big picture, make Cincinnati a cool place to live. And I know that sounds very silly, but if you talk to executives at Procter & Gamble, which is our biggest employer, it is very important to them that Cincinnati is a city that people want to live in, right? So we can actually recruit people. And that means making sure neighborhoods are walkable, there's good public transit, but also just being an inclusive place to live. And we on City Council have taken that part very, very seriously and trying to make Cincinnati welcoming. Beyond that, we as a city have been investing a lot in our, we have neighborhood business districts. So Cincinnati has 52 neighborhoods. Many of them, not quite all, have areas that are designated as the business district. And in that space, we have a lot of tools to kind of incentivize businesses in those to build up and use that space so we can have that walkability, that density piece so people can live nearby. And beyond that, Cincinnati also has a lot of resources available to small businesses, loans, helping people get access to capital and doing that type of stuff. And I think that's really important.
How did you decide to run for local office? Like, why not state office? Why not federal office? What made you say, you know what, I'm going to start city council? Because personally, I think a lot of people should start locally, get some experience under their belt, and then go for higher office. But you started with local office.
Yeah, well, I mean, did you hear me describe the state legislature in Ohio? So the things I want to do is, so I ran on a gun violence prevention, gun safety platform. If you go to the State House today, you can scream and yell all you want, but it's really hard to
But can't you make some small steps or at least some progress to maybe open the door?
You don't know those GOP legislatures up there. I wish, and we have amazing gun sense lawmakers up in the State House who work hard every day. Shout out to Rep. Jessica Miranda, Dunny Isaacson, Rachel Baker, I can keep naming them. And they really fight hard every day. The numbers aren't there.
So then how do you fix that? Is it like independent commission that needs to be installed to draw the maps, or is it like ranked choice voting?
Did I pay you to ask me this?
Yes. No.
Great. Ohio this year is going to have fair maps on the ballot. So we've done it before.
Great.
And frankly, the last time the process we put in place, the governor and others ignored. So now we are working hard to pull the map drawing process out of the hands of lawmakers and into a third-party kind of group of former judges and nonpartisan people. So that's going to be on the ballot this November in Ohio.
It's big.
It's so big.
That's going to draw a lot of people out, like issue number 1 and issue 2 did.
I hope it should. Because everything comes back to the fair maps, right? Like we in the gun violence prevention community, we know it's going to be really hard to get anything done until we have fair maps of people who actually represent our beliefs. For example, in Ohio, we know background checks are overwhelmingly popular, vast majority. Can we make a dent on that? Not until we get fair maps and fair representation.
So why not pour all your resources, your activism into something like fair maps instead of even running for city council?
Because I can make a difference day to day here. So
you can have a day job and do that.
I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So we're going to work really hard to get fair maps passed. I'm also the vice president of the Hamilton County Young Dems, and we're going to be working really hard to get young voters activated. But in the meantime, here in Cincinnati, we are able to make a difference. And I'm going to keep zoning in on the gun violence prevention issue. A lot of the work happening here, because it's a big issue right now, comes down to investment resources and how the city is working with the community. So where we are pouring dollars, which community partners we're engaging, all of that. And that we as a city can have a lot of influence over. So we can have the end game in sight and still be doing the day-to-day work here to make things better.
The relationship between the public and the police is an issue that's been getting a lot of attention with several high-profile police violence cases across the country and in Ohio as well. How do you, as a city council member, help try to mend the relationship between the police and the public?
Yeah, so let me take a step back and just share a little history about here in Cincinnati. So in 2001, there was a unarmed Black teenager who was shot and killed by the officers that sparked a series of riots that were the biggest since the Rodney King riots here in Cincinnati. Coming out of that, there was a ton of activism and work to put together a thing called the Collaborative Agreement. So our police have gone through they have a series of kind of mandates from us to the public on their behavior and how to engage with the public. In addition, we have a Citizens Complaint Authority, which is a civilian oversight board. So if someone does have a rough encounter with an officer, it can come to this board, and there is kind of a ruling on that. So I think anytime like a gun's discharged, like that board will have oversight into what's happening. So we've taken a lot of great steps. And I do want to say there's an awesome thing for anyone at home who's not in Cincinnati. There's a website and a campaign called Campaign Zero, and it's all around police brutality and relations. And they have a series of, it's called 8 Can't Wait, and it's kind of things that officers should be doing. So implementing, no chokeholds, better reporting, et cetera. I'm proud to say Cincinnati has all 8 of those. So
that was a federal thing people talked about too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't shoot at a moving car.
that's one of those 8 Can't Wait. Yeah. So we in Cincinnati have kind of had our reckoning. Now, with that said, it's been brutal these last few years. I think with the advent of live streaming and people always having a smartphone, the videos that are coming out are absolutely devastating. And this is a ginormous issue. I think, every city should aspire to pass this kind of 8 Can't Wait and have that oversight. I believe strongly in that civilian oversight and making sure that we're holding people accountable while still doing what we can to support our officers. You have to kind of have both, because frankly, when I'm out in the community, especially communities that are struggling with violence, they want to have their neighborhood liaison officer there that they can talk to and reach out to. And again, Cincinnati has that, which is great. So you've got to have that balance.
I'm always curious about what it's like once you're on the inside of a legislative body.
Yeah.
You're an activist, you're on the outside, you're demanding change, you don't see it, you're like, okay, I'm gonna get in there. Now you're in there, you gotta deal with these people, you gotta work together as a group. Like, I know it's been a short amount of time, but like, what have you seen already has it changed your mind at all in any way, your approach?
No, I mean, I think, it's funny, I've been thinking about this week, just randomly, and the mantra I've kind of come up with in my own mind is like, think progressive, act practically. So you want to have those progressive ideals, know what you're moving towards, know what that end goal is, but really working towards those practical solutions that you can actually move the needle on.
Yeah. Do you feel like you could face some backlash or criticism from your more progressive allies that you had when you were on the outside, now that you can't share everything with them and hey, I've got to make some compromise here or there?
So my background is in communications. That's what I was doing before I was elected. So we've been working really hard to be transparent and build up that trust. So if you go to our council Instagram page, so Councilmember Anna Albee on Instagram, we've been posting a video a day telling people who we're meeting with, giving them updates about what's coming through. And I think that's super important, just giving people an idea of what does City Council do? Who are they meeting with? What are those discussions? And that's really important to me to have that level of transparency.
One last question before we wrap up. Homelessness is a big issue for me. My mother was an unhoused person in D.C. What is the steps that Cincinnati is taking to try to eliminate the homeless population to make them housed?
Yeah. So housing's a big issue here in Cincinnati. We've had a series of kind of ballot issues about it. So the city of Cincinnati invests with the Cincinnati Development Fund into a fund of funds that specifically is directed to helping fund housing for those who aren't familiar, there's a thing called AMI, Area Median Income, and affordable housing. That technical term is 80 AMI or below. We've been funding a whole bunch of projects, like 800 at 60 AMI or below. So making sure that those funds are available to build housing here in Cincinnati for that kind of lower income. In addition, I'm really excited. We just rolled out, literally like this last week, a thing called Connected Communities. And what we're doing with this is we are actively changing zoning to make it easier to build what's called middle housing. So right now, what you often think of as housing, you've got single home or like a huge apartment building. What's in the middle is duplexes, tris, quads, right, row homes. And what we're trying to do here in Cincinnati is to make it easier to build those and faster to build those, so we can get that kind of density, especially around those business districts that I described. So really just trying to churn out a ton of housing here while kind of doing the middle housing plus directing funds at that affordable housing.
Whew, seems like you got your hands full. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. This was a fun conversation, and we'll be right back in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here with two new lovely guests. I'm Dylan Burns, war journalist and Twitch streamer, and I'm also here with legislative correspondent on Twitch and YouTube, IRI, and we have, who are you?
I'm Irrelevant on Twitch and Kick, political commentator and drama streamer.
Well, Wick TV, I stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. I host debates, do a wide variety of content. I've had people, No Opinion came on my show the other day. It was a great conversation. Yeah, that's what I do.
So, Irrelevant, any good drama from this yet? Did anybody, do the dirty?
I mean, it seemed like one of the canvassers possibly got into a car accident.
Yeah.
That was...
That's the best we got?
Or something?
No, I think it was just a little something, but there's nothing significant, no crazy drama or anything like that.
Got you. What can we do to change that?
Apparently, all you got to do is you got to just have these people stay out for a couple more days and then keep them inside of these houses locked away. I was my room. I have a roommate now that showed up. I'm in a shared space, like this couch inside of a shared space, and there's another couch or another bed that just pulled out underneath it, and
he slept next to a man last night. He didn't even know his name.
I didn't know his name. But it was
LGBT icon.
Of course, yeah, it's me coming out on that.
Did you go out and knock doors too?
Yeah, I did.
How was that?
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Fun fact, Relly and I knocked doors together when he came out in Georgia for the first time in 2021. Yeah. And now were you leading? Were you guiding a little bit, passing down that knowledge to the next person?
Actually, I was with one of the leads here, a very experienced individual who was giving me a bunch of tips and pointers. You were really chill. They were really chill. But this person, oh man, they were giving me the
pro
rundown.
Tips?
Yeah, the tech.
What are the pro tips? Anything?
It was just like, how to come off as like a little bit more personal, a little relax a bit, because I'm pretty anxious about it. I know other people are too.
I get nervous.
It's not the easiest thing to do.
Do you think collecting so many different internet needs at a single location has undercut our ability to have any social awareness when interacting with voters?
Of course. I mean, there's no other way to go about it. These people are... This knocking on the door is probably the most social interaction a lot of these people have had.
It makes for a memorable experience. So
Absolutely.
when you have internet nerds knocking on your door, you're going to remember that.
You are.
It's going to linger with you. The smell, at least.
Who did that nerd tell me who to vote for?
Exactly.
What was you were knocking doors too, Wade?
Yeah,
How was your experience?
Me and Josiah from Pondering Politics went out together. I think we must have knocked 100 doors at least. We spent a lot of time doing it.
Couple hours.
Yeah, the people were great. Yeah, we had a lot of discussions about what was on people's minds. Like, what did the average voter, like the man about town, if you will, what was on their minds when it came to the election coming up? And yeah, it was.
Did anybody stick out in particular? Do you have any particular?
Actually, there was a theme, right? A lot of people were just very concerned about democracy.
I heard that too. Yeah.
And people are worried, right? People are worried about the integrity of our system, right? And they're worried about the people who doubt it, the people who are trying to tear it down and destroy it. So that is something that, again, it surprised me. I thought we were going to hear economy. I thought we were going to hear immigration. Didn't hear that once.
Democracy.
Democracy was the number one thing.
Did you hear certain issues or anything too?
Yeah, but the responses I got were more local. It was literally just like, hey, there's potholes in the road that they promised to fix for like a while and they're not fixed.
Yeah.
Like that was some
You got
of the
parking too, right?
Yeah, parking. Yeah. There was like people that were concerned with like the very immediate problems, like just parking to be able to get to the house. Like having proper sidewalks, crosswalks, so that way people could get across the street with their dogs and animals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was like a lot of people's big concern.
It's interesting. It's interesting to me how they open up. Like, why would they tell you this? Like, what's the point? They think you're gonna fix it, but it just shows you that there's a need for like a sounding board for people to be able to.
That's what it felt like.
Talk about their problems. Yeah, like
it felt
the
like
issues they have.
People were coming out and they're like, "Oh man, finally somebody asking me what my problems are." Hey, look, listen, I'll cook with you.
I got a list. Hold on, let me go get it real quick.
There was some people that were like that. They felt very, very like energized to have a conversation about some of the problems they could vent off to us. So it was cool.
I got a question. One of the biggest issues that I've heard from a lot of the new canvassers is these people don't know the progressive victory. These people don't know the person on their porch. And once you start like, hi, my name's so-and-so, tell me what you care about, tell me about your politics, are you registered to vote? People are private, people feel weird about it because they don't know who you are. How do you make somebody feel comfortable sharing that type of information?
Me personally, I'm just I don't know. It's a great question. I mean,
look at this guy's easygoing demeanor. I feel like I would just talk to him about
First
shit.
of all,
I want to open up about my secrets right now.
Well, look, first of all, it's kind of like the pro tip: step back, smile, looking at the door. Like, I carry the clipboard, so they think I'm more professional because I feel like utility guys carry around a clipboard. I'm not just some guy with my hands in my pockets. So I think it's just about being looking professional, but also being positive, smiling. But I think when I talk to people at the door, I'm like, listen, how you doing, man? We're just out here making sure people are getting registered to vote. We got a big election coming up, and they can see like the passion, And when I talk to the other canvassers, because I love going up to all these newer canvassers too, and so many of these people are like first time canvassing. And for them, they're just excited to share that. And I think people can sense that excitement when you knock on their door. You're not there like, how you doing today, sir? I'm here to collect signature. Not that vibe. So
yeah, a smile goes a long way. I think also leading with the voter registration, I think, is really good because who gets angry at somebody getting the public registered to vote? Even if you're not registered to vote, if you hear that, it's like, oh, this is a public service of some sort.
Right. Yeah. They get to see you're not there to sell them something. Like, you're genuinely here because you care about something. I don't know. Do you guys get that vibe?
Absolutely. Yeah. They want to, as Irrelevant said, people want to talk to you, right? And if you center them, right? Again, me and Josiah were going around, kept it simple, kept it short. Hey, would you like to be, are you registered to vote? Would you like to be? You need to update it. Oh, no? Okay. One last question. What's your top issue this election? And people will share, right?
Yeah, I felt the same way, but there was a lot of people opening up. I had a person that we talked to that said if Trump gets elected, they're going to move to Iceland. That's what they said. They were like, yeah, Iceland, that's the spot.
Any particular reason Iceland specifically?
They were like, they said a place without a conservative leader, and they wanted Iceland because they liked the snow with the like hot springs or something and stuff like that.
They had it planned out.
Yeah, they were scouting spots.
They looked it up on
spots.
They were hitting up Zillow. Yeah. All right, I think we're gonna keep bringing people in. So, Relly, we're gonna swap you real quick. Right. We'll bring you back though.
Hi, Relly.
What is up, party people? Talking about the glory of Donald J. Trump, our man, our savior, our leader, our hero.
Are you a big Trump fan, actually?
Yeah, I like Trump.
Wait, introduce yourself real quick, just in case people don't know.
Hello, my name is Lauren De Laguna, and I'm on YouTube and X, and I like to fight people on Twitter.
Paste. Okay, hold on. Wick has a big debate coming up tonight.
Ooh,
Wick,
fun.
do you want to preview this real quick? Because I know Lauren wants to fight you a little bit on this.
I wanted to physically fight you.
But wait,
physically fight? I'm down.
Private. I told you that in private. I can't believe you're just like airing out my dirty laundry.
Look, if you guys want to fight, go ahead. That's cool.
Let me.
Tell them about the debate first.
Tell the debate first.
Before you guys
get
fight.
to the fisticuffs later.
Okay. Before the fisticuffs.
So tonight, at about 7:30, we're going to have Ian Crossland from Tim Pool, right?
And my boyfriend.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, we dated for 3 days. It was fun. Go ahead.
Fair enough. But Destiny is actually going to be talking to him. We're going to talk about can we trust the electoral system in America? Has it failed us as voters? It's an interesting topic. I think there's a lot of discussion around that, especially around the 2020 election, and it's worth discussing. It's worth talking about. What about you? Do you think it's failed us?
Has the electoral system failed us? Is that your question?
Can we trust our votes?
Currently, I don't believe our elections are as secure as they could possibly be. I think the things that would create a secure election are things that conservatives have been fighting for. And so like single day voting, no mass mail out ballots, voter ID, having a end time for like a strict start and end time, having it for the open polls, having a time in which all the ballots will be counted by, having if you have.
But so I've heard this argument several times, and it seems to me like you're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. We know that the fraud in our system, in our electoral system, currently is very, very low. It's
Yeah, you know that?
insignificant.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? We've done data. We've looked at the amounts of people who have been charged for
Get 'em,
fraud and
Laura.
things like that.
Right, so
Get 'em.
just because fraud hasn't necessarily been found or prosecuted, and I would
Secret fraud, hidden.
well, all fraud is intended to be secret. People don't typically be like, hey guys, I committed fraud. It was awesome. Let me make a YouTube video about it. Now, sometimes they do, but then they usually get caught.
Yeah,
and then there's people who talk about how dumb they were for talking about the fraud. So yeah, typically fraud is secret.
Well, can I ask you a question? But
No.
how do you okay, never
Done.
mind.
Well, that's
Go ahead.
But if then how do you know that there's an issue of mass fraud or that it needs to be addressed if you can't get the data on it because the data that is collected isn't trustable by your standards, but also you can't collect it because they're not telling you.
We just know from, first of all, we have done studies on previous elections and on elections in other countries, and we know like our three-letter agencies have created a list of things to do to create the most secure possible election, as looking at other countries and seeing elections that have been fraudulent or stolen.
I understand,
And
but those are other
when
countries.
the list of things that they have said, no, in totality, like it's just about election security and the things that you can do to make the election the most secure are the things that the conservatives are fighting for. Voter ID, one-day voting, no mass
Look,
mail out.
We could the most secure election is one that doesn't happen. There's no fraud if you don't. So obviously, right, we can make it more secure, but there will be.
Technically be the
Dude, this debate sounds epic. We're gonna have to wait for
Fair enough,
next
enough, yeah,
round. We got to bring somebody else in. Wick, thank you for
Round two.
previewing it. Thank you for sharing stuff with us. We appreciate it. Oh, wait, I'll say?
Give the mic to Steven.
Oh, okay. Wick can stay.
I'm eye candy now.
We got a brand new content creator coming on, guys. New guy. He's a little shy.
Actually, I want Steven in between Ira and Wick.
Oh.
Okay.
We're getting manhandled.
Wow.
I would put it on the other side because he's on the other side. Because
Hi guys, what's up?
Welcome,
Hey.
Steven. Hello.
She's telling us about Trump and how he's cool.
So what do you think about that exchange right there? Who won?
It's okay. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth, our elections are probably pretty secure. I know that bothers conservatives, but
Get wrecked. Take that
well,
out.
as long as the stork says it.
true.
Damn.
You're not bringing that energy you had for Wick right now to him.
Sorry, this little dwarf says it. Like, what's the energy? Like, what kind of insults you want me throwing?
You gonna take that?
I think the problem, when it comes to voter stuff, I think the problem is both sides lie. I think the Democrats lie a little bit, but I think conservatives lie a lot. I think if you wanted to have a secure election, I think that if a conservative would have put forth a measure where you're offering to send a free identification card to every single person in the state and then have that at what?
I said, I think
You might say fine,
No,
but
there's
that-
a lot
but-
of conservatives that if you're willing to give, like, okay, if we're gonna require voter ID, then a lot of conservatives would be like, okay, fine. Then the Democrats make very good point that we should make IDs accessible, easily accessible, and free.
Sure.
If we're gonna
Historically, though, I don't know if conservatives actually care about that. I think they just don't want like certain people, like black people and poor people, to vote.
that's just not true.
But,
Especially,
I mean, like-
especially when Trump is running for election, we want as many black people out
You
there voting as
absolutely do
possible.
not want as many black people. Not every single black person.
Black people love Trump.
Yeah, they're not all the one guy on Twitter that raps about Trump. I'm sorry, but the average black person is probably, yeah.
If you like it
Look
or
at
not.
South Carolina.
Keep
How
that
do you
energy,
think that
have
Trump
it
would do
the
in
rock.
South Carolina? We saw the what's it called, the primaries, and Biden got 96% of the vote. Everyone was saying, oh, black people aren't excited to vote for Biden. That just doesn't seem to be true. We seem to see, again, high voter turnout and high, they want to vote, right? 96%, that's a lot. That's a huge amount.
Are you doing? So you're judging it off 2024
That is
primaries
one-
and not 2020.
That is one data point, but that's not the only data point we got.
And
Again, we can
2020
look at
Trump
the-
election
Let's look at the
results.
historical
Okay.
precedent
I think
of
we
how black
should.
people in America have voted.
Yes,
Do you
I
think-
absolutely think we should because
Yeah?
we could see that the dramatic trend upward starting in 2016 then 2020 specifically because Trump ran. Black people like Trump. Look, if
wait,
Ron DeSantis won the Republican primaries, I don't think that I would be like, okay, maybe I would prefer if then black people might not be as excited to vote for Trump.
Right?
But people,
you only want black people to vote if they vote for who you think you
Well,
want.
I only want anyone to vote, like any race. I don't. It's not like particular towards blacks, but like if it was like Asians, and if Asians were all going to vote for Biden, then I wouldn't want.
Extend the vote to everyone, regardless of how they vote, because I believe in democracy, and that's the difference between you and me.
I believe in democracy.
Voting, you believe in the power.
Don't let them say that to
I
you.
believe in democracy,
I think-
and I don't think that. So, like for instance, in Australia, they require everybody to vote. That is really
I'm an
forcing
American,
everybody to
and I don't
vote.
care what Australia does.
No, you're not hearing me out. What the fuck?
rude.
It's just about.
God, hold on, can we just take a moment to appreciate how much you just got destroyed there?
It's not just
Oh
about.
my God.
It's not just about the most people voting. It's not just about having the maximum people voting. It's about having the people who care about the elections, who are informed about the issues, voting. And we would like the maximum amount of people to be informed and want to vote. However, it's not just getting as many people out there to vote, especially if they're completely
I
innocent.
think you should skip and just fist fight.
I don't want to.
Yeah, bring it! No,
I don't want to pile on, but is there? I don't want to pile on at all. But is there any concern that if you put all these measures in place, like single day voting, that therefore the amount of people that are voting is going to go down, and then you're not going to have a representative voter sample for the population? Then certain groups of people who work on election day, or people who couldn't make it out, who would have voted if they could have mailed it in, they can't vote.
Yeah, so I would want, if we're going to be doing all of these things that conservatives want, if we're going to be doing all the things that conservatives want to make this election as secure as possible, I think the conservatives are going to have to come the other way and make it as easy as possible for people to vote.
How do you do that with single? Wait, but how could you?
Well, for instance, like making it a national holiday on election day. That's something Democrats
Let's do that
typically
first.
want.
Let's do that
making
first.
free.
Show of good faith. If that is how you want to do it, if we can make the voting day a national holiday.
This is such a non-issue. Conservatives don't want to do that. Any of this.
I think
they
a
don't.
lot of
When
us
you
absolutely
when the
do.
courts have looked at how conservatives have tried to do like voter ID and shit in the past, like I think in North Carolina, I'm pretty sure the phrase was surgically targets black voters to disenfranchise them from voting.
So
when they tried to disbar certain
based
IDs that they used, when they tried to shut down certain polling places they wanted to use, and when they tried to get rid of early voting that black people predominantly use, and when they sit here and
Student IDs as well.
What? Sorry, he flipped me off for like 10 minutes. I don't know why he's just screaming at me. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think conservatives have any interest in increasing the amount of voter people. Like, look at all the crying out against like the mail out no request ballots or whatever for mail-in voting. Like, why so upset?
About the mail-in voting, because it's not as secure as this in-person voting, in which you can actually look at someone's ID.
Why have conservatives who have disproportionately enjoyed mail-in ballots because of like military voting and everything overseas for years never complained about the security of mail-in ballots for? Why is it that so many of the state statutes that were charged with being corrupt and unfair passed by Republican legislatures and nobody ever changed them before the election?
You're conflating ideas.
That's
so
right.
fine.
Tell her.
So, for instance, mass mail-out voting is very different than the military absentee ballots, which is like, so it's a completely, so you're trying to conflate those ideas because conservatives typically represent the military and are going to be voting absentee ballot, but the way that the 2020 election was held was completely unique, and the vast majority of mail-in ballots from that election were not military.
But why is it that 12 states that used the mail-out ballots with the no request mail-out ballots, Trump won anyway? Like the idea that these are like historically insecure, there's no data for it. He won states that use these, so there's no reason to. What?
He didn't win that election.
No. Okay. But But he didn't win the states he needed to. But I mean, who cares? I mean, it's not like Trump doesn't need the popular vote to win anyway. He lost the popular vote against Hillary by what? 3 million votes? 5 million votes? 4 million votes?
But he won that election.
He did win, and he didn't win against Biden. But what's the point?
Because I think that.
And remember, gang, this is a preview for tonight.
Yes.
FYI.
2020 was significantly less secure than
it wasn't.
2016.
It was officials under a
Due to
Trump
the-
administration
yeah,
that said
the
this is
COVID.
the most secure election we've ever had.
Wait, let us-
Trump officials
Like, that's
said
actually
this.
why I know that
let's-
they said it, but the fact that they said it does not make that true.
Where's the
and
proof that it's not true?
Oh, okay.
It's
Come on,
actually
chill.
still- where's
We
the
don't
proof
want
that it is
1 versus
true?
100 here. We got a whole bunch.
The one conservative. That's the one that's.
We love her though. We love her.
How many
elections in the United States
We
history?
love her.
A gangbang of
She's
20
very special.
being one, featuring Jasmine Jafar Only one bitch gets fucked.
If Republicans were to actually come forward, saying we want to make this a national holiday, we want to issue a voter ID to everybody in the state, I think Democrats have a really hard time fighting against that. I think it would look kind of crazy because, rightfully pointed out, there's a lot of European countries, most or all, I think, require like voter IDs anyway.
It's actually a really good point. Speaking of national holidays, do you know what day it is today?
Am I allowed to make your mom jokes?
Super Bowl!
Yeah.
Super Bowl Sunday! Let's go! Taylor Swift ruined the
Oh, I
Super Bowl.
literally forgot it was Super Bowl. I'm not gonna
Oh, wait,
lie.
what?
I was gonna Swift into something else.
Another national holiday.
Do you know what day it is today?
Let me check my Google Calendar. I don't know.
It's the last day of your canvassing event.
Oh my god.
That's a national holiday?
It will be soon.
Super Bowl is like literally an international holiday. A national holiday made international. It's like so dope. We're gonna impress everybody in the world with our stupid sport that nobody else plays.
That's
It's
true.
like
It's
so
literally the worst sport. It's literally
It's so cool.
any sport is better than American football.
elections or?
Super Bowl.
Yeah, football.
The
Cringe.
superb owl.
At least play rugby. At least just be brave and play rugby.
Oh my god.
Am I wrong? The tactics are more interesting. You can only throw
I'm
backwards.
sorry, Kyla. We have people who have literal brain damage because of our sports, and you think that they're not.
You think rugby doesn't have brain
Yeah,
damage?
They do.
They're worse. They don't even have helmets.
Yeah,
They don't even have padding. They just fucking run into each other.
To have more brain damage.
Wait, hold on. But also, fact check. I'm pretty sure playing without helmets and everything means that you have to play safer and you don't have as much brain damage.
True.
It's like boxing with
Do you
gloves.
have evidence for that?
You can look it up, but I know it's true for boxing. You can hit
it's
harder
true
with
for
gloves.
boxing. The issue is that like what you're talking about in rugby is like high impact, so they don't like get knocked on the head necessarily.
I'm making this up, but I seriously don't. In rugby, they're crashing into each other the same way they do in an NFL football game. There's no way.
Yeah, but you know what? That they're having major neck torsion that's going on.
Ours is better.
No, the brainstem neck
The
torsion.
brainstem is super important for CTE development.
Yeah, actually, isn't it true that if you wear a helmet, you're more likely to get brain injuries?
Hey, welcome to 2 minutes ago on the conversation.
That's what I'm saying.
No, she's saying the opposite of you.
You're wrong.
Why?
Because
She's saying
when
that the
you wear
helmet makes you less careful of your head.
Well, I want to say.
How does that, when you wear the helmet, wait,
So
No, because it's not about the impact, it's about the movement of your brain. So if you do this, you can still get a fucking brain injury.
that's crazy because your mom was doing this last night. She didn't get any brain injuries.
Actually, she did. She's really mumbling now.
Listen, I think it's awesome we got all these cool content creators here to come out and do the canvassing event. So thank you guys all for coming out, and it's a treat to see everybody together. Do we want to? Oh, can we pass the mic over there?
So rates of head injury for rugby players apparently 50%, 68 for football. Because at the end of the day,
quick, football, American football or the poor football?
no, it's American football. I would never make that confusion.
Compare soccer to rugby. That's
What do you mean? You see soccer?
Yeah, how the
if the
fuck
wind blows the wrong way, they're on the ground like, oh!
No one's gonna say
penalty
yeah.
shot!
There's not a
oh!"
68% chance.
They get injured all the time.
The real.
There's not a 68% chance of head injury in soccer.
We have people put their bodies on the line and sacrifice their lives for that sport, and you want us to make it worse for them?
Yeah.
I just want what's her name, Taylor Swift to win tonight. Okay, that's all I want.
I'm tired of the bitching about Taylor Swift. She's on for 25 seconds for a 2-hour game. Why do people care that much? It's not that big a
Because
deal.
those 25 seconds are important and they
Did you ever
matter.
think about the
And how
fact-
dare
No,
you
she
minimize
has.
women's time?
Do you ever think about the fact that she's hot?
That's why that 25 seconds is very much appreciated.
Yeah, it's very important.
Steven, who are you rooting for in today's Super Bowl?
You just wanted to fact check, you wanted to slide in, shit on me, and then just hand the mic back?
come in, I've got 49ers.
Ah, I see. Calculated, you know? Interesting, very interesting. So did it say nothing about brainstem injuries?
I feel like a lot of people were.
It said nothing about brainstem injuries? I'm just
It just said
conceding
head,
that.
so apparently rugby players get more face injuries because obviously they got the cauliflower ears and shit. But isn't that the whole point with helmets? Is that helmets only protect your skull? They don't protect your brain from
Well,
bouncing around.
they usually protect, they
Yeah.
just protect from like skull fractures and stuff like that. They don't protect from the bouncing around.
Wait, what was I wrong about?
Yeah,
There was a higher rate of injuries for football.
No, he was right.
Wait, what? I thought he was.
Oh!
No.
Just like for voter fraud. Oh!
No, he was correct.
All right,
They were wrong.
I guess we're getting the
We do
signal to.
68% for football, 50% for rugby.
That means
Which
rugby
means
players
football players
get
get higher
less.
head injury rates.
Yeah, so.
Wait, no, I was saying that they get more.
Yes. No, you had it. You were there.
Oh,
They get
we
more
were-
injuries.
We were against you.
Yes.
Oh.
But you were fist pumping me, so I thought you were part of my team.
Lauren's just excited to be here.
I think that the real controversy here is that Kyla doesn't want American football players to necessarily play rugby. She just wants them to get more injured because she hates them. So
That's true. I hate athletes, but unfortunately, that's where we have to end here. You'll have to tune in next time to find out my plan with athletes in the future.
Excellent.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Hey, how's it going, guys? We are joined by former Congressman Tim Ryan. How's it going?
Going great, going great. I'm in the parking lot of my kids' basketball practice, so sorry for the ad hoc move here.
We appreciate you coming out. I know multiple of us have, me and Lycan both have had interactions with your campaigns before, so we're really interested in talking to you. The first thing I wanted to ask you is right now the political environment is unbelievably divisive, and you ran multiple campaigns in this political environment, both for president on the national level and for Senate against J.D. Vance. What are the challenges of running in such a divisive political environment?
Well, you can get caught up in the energy of the environment sometimes, as opposed to trying to like create a new path or shape the energy to go in a different direction. So the big risk really is, not being aware of how you're responding, and you're just adding to the divisiveness in the country or in the state that you're running in, or the congressional district or wherever. So really trying to avoid that. But I think the big I think way to the jujitsu move, I guess you could say, is really having big themes, trying to stay out of the weeds on the issues that people just like have a visceral reaction to, and really try to get to some unifying themes in the campaign. We had, obviously, abortion was a huge issue. The war in the Ukraine was a big issue. So I talked a lot about freedom, whether it was freedom from Vladimir Putin, like invading your country, or freedom that a woman should have from the government intervening in her healthcare decisions. So trying to find these big, basic American principles that can help kind of ground people and say, well, I'm for freedom too, and so you can use those big American themes as ways of trying to get people on the same page. But you can't take the bait, because I think a lot of times the other side benefits from, us getting in a fight about every little thing, and leaders should be about the big vision for the country that unifies us. So tricky, easier said than done, I can tell you, because you're getting in you're in a contest, so you can tend to react in a way that makes matters worse, not better.
I know back in the 2020 campaign, and both during your Senate campaign, one of the big themes, and I was working for 21st Century Democrats at the time who endorsed you, so I had to track your themes, I had to check out your messaging. At the time, it was big union pushing the unions, pushing working class issues. Is this an example of one of the big themes you think is a uniting issue for Ohioans, definitely considering their history with union manufacturing jobs?
Yeah, and then that workforce has changed. I mean, a lot of younger people now, and this group will know better than I do, but a lot of people aren't working in manufacturing shops. I mean, in Ohio, we're a little bit older, a little bit whiter in most of the state, and so you got to, that was a big theme, was working class people, and I didn't mean white people. I would get discussions with people in the media like, well, Tim Ryan's the white working class guy. I'm like, I'm not the white working class guy. I'm the working class guy, whether you're white or black or brown or gay or straight or a man or a woman, or you're in service industry or manufacturing or whatever. If you're out there, busting your rear end, doing everything right, I'm for you. And so that is a very unifying theme. I think, when Democrats win, we, like Sherrod Brown in a place like Ohio, you've got to be 80% economic message. You look at a guy like Sherrod, my record as well, very progressive. There weren't any bills that I didn't vote for, didn't support, didn't advocate for on gun control or health care. Voted for the Affordable Care Act, voted for the energy bill back in 2009. All of those things. But you've got to frame it because in an economic manner, because most people are still living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of the people in the country couldn't survive a $400 emergency, which means you blow your tire out or you have a health care issue. So I would say yes, working class, but I think we've got to talk about how that looks maybe a little bit different now, especially with young people trying to get into the workforce. More interest rates at 6-7%, this economic squeeze around food and bills and healthcare. So we've got to stay on an economic message. That's how Obama won. That's how Bill Clinton won. In a lot of ways, Biden was talking about that too. But the Republicans, they want to fight culture wars because that's how you divide people. But economics is a unifier. So we got to, I think, stay. It doesn't mean too. This is an important thing to say. It doesn't mean you back down 1 inch. If you're at a debate or someone asks you, like, yeah, absolutely, I'm pro-choice. Government should be in that business of making women's healthcare decisions. But, issues around having a child are economic issues too. And then get right back on your economic message, if you understand what I'm saying.
How determined are you to remain on that economic message when the winds are kind of changing politically, when I guess the population is starting to care about other issues? Today, a lot of people here in Cincinnati, we went out, we were knocking on doors and talking to voters, and it seemed like things that were coming up over and over again were definitely more nebulous or more kind of socio-political things. Like a lot of people were saying they wanted to defend democracy in not voting for Trump, or a lot of people were saying that they wanted to defend a woman's right to choose in terms of abortion. Do you think that when you're in a state like Ohio, and I'm sympathetic to getting bogged down in particular culture war issues that, for a lot of reasons, nobody wants to get bogged down in. How do you decide, to stay the course on econ policy versus dipping your toes more into the social or political battlegrounds for some of the culture wars issues?
So the best way to probably answer that is through probably an example of how I would maybe handle that. I would say something along the lines of course, my record or the record for the party, if you're out canvassing on behalf of a candidate or Democratic Party, we were the ones who put the ballot initiative on here in Ohio. We were the one that pushed it. We were the ones that won it with 57%. And we're proud of that, and I would just say, and then the issues like democracy, to me, like, you only get a Donald Trump if there's fertile ground for a demagogue. And I think there's only fertile ground for a demagogue when people are struggling and they're not doing well. And we didn't have this, we didn't have these problems. We didn't have the threat of a demagogue when we had the largest middle class in the history of mankind. When we had, millions and millions of manufacturing jobs that were good paying union jobs. There was no room for a demagogue. You get loud. If you said what Trump says now in 1950, 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever, things started to deindustrialize and get worse. The lack of a middle class, the economic anxiety gave rise to the path for him to come in to threaten our own democracy. So we are absolutely we have to protect our democracy and make sure Donald Trump never sees the White House. But we also have to create an economic and political environment where the next demagogue can't get any oxygen because people are doing well. They're thriving. Like Trump would say stuff and people in Ohio and other places would be like, yeah, man, he's saying what the fuck I want to say. None of these guys have done anything. He's like, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for him. Or, I'm an independent. I've been waiting for a guy like this forever. Like, neither of these parties have done anything right for it. That economic anxiety is what created the opportunity for a guy like Donald Trump to thrive. So that's what I say when getting back to these economic issues. And yet, the worrisome, to me, the worrisome thing in the polling is Trump's favorables on the economy over Biden. That to me is a real red flag we got to worry about.
Here, something I'm kind of curious about. How do you think Democrats strategically can take credit for things they've done for the economy without sounding like they're out of touch about the economy? So there are stats, for instance, about how we've enjoyed some of the lowest stretches of unemployment at these levels in almost all of U.S. history, or that wages are growing, even for the poorest in society, faster than they have for a long time. Year over year inflation has come down. But if you talk about these things, I think you kind of sound a little bit, some people will hear you and they'll just say like, oh, well, that's not true. You know, the cost of groceries is still high for me, or I haven't gotten a wage, or rent is unaffordable for me. What do you think Biden or Democrats, I guess largely in the country, should be doing to kind of take credit for some of their economic platform, which I think they need to do to set themselves apart from Republicans without just sounding like they're out of touch with the common man's financial struggles?
Yeah. See, there's a principle in The Art of War, which is a great strategic campaign book. And it says you meet people in the orthodox and you lead them to the extraordinary. And you have to meet people where they are. And I think where Biden has gotten into trouble is saying, well, this is Bidenomics. Well, people don't feel like things are going really well. And then you just put your name on something that is giving you not the credit, the blame for how they're feeling. So I think you have to start out, and this is an emotional business. Like, you have to meet people where they are emotionally and say, I know you're struggling. This is, we've got a lot of work to do. I know what you're going through. Kind of, you guys, a lot of you guys are too young to remember Bill Clinton, but he had like this, I feel your pain, kind of just aura about him. And so people really felt like he understood what they were going through. And we've got it, that's where it starts. And then you say, and look, because I know how you're feeling and I know what's happened in this country for the last 30 or 40 years, we have reindustrialized the country. And that's where you start bragging a little bit. Inflation Reduction Act, $1 trillion commitment to clean energy, the infrastructure bill, bipartisan, the CHIPS Act, which here in Ohio, we're going to benefit from the Intel manufacturing plant, which may end up being a $100 billion investment. They needed the seed money from the CHIPS Act to actually finally, after 40 years, reshore chip manufacturing in the United States. Those jobs are going to pay $135,000 a year, like average. So meet them where they are and then brag and say, and this is why I've done this. And I know you're not feeling it, but we can't turn back. We got to keep going. And we're going to double down on the working people of this country and that kind of thing. But if you don't meet them where they are and just say, you start reading them, GDP numbers and, economic statistics, you're screwed, because people don't want to hear numbers. They want to know. There's an old saying, guy taught me when I first ran for office. He says, people don't care what you know. They want to know that you care. And that's it. If they know you care, like for some reason, a lot of people think Donald Trump cares about them, which obviously he doesn't. But you see the level of loyalty that happens when they actually think you care about them. And I think that's where, Biden, was the misstep with the Bidenomics thing, which was why we got to get back to that emotional connection of, we understand you're struggling, and here's what we're doing about it.
What is your outlook on the country as far as this next election cycle goes? The Trump came in and he upended a lot of norms. There was the expectation that maybe after he gets into office, he's going to change his ways. We clearly see that didn't happen, and it got progressively worse. And he's kind of fomented a lot of that kind of mentality in his base. Do you see that as something that even without a Trump re-election, something that goes away? Do we have someone to kind of bridge that divide and kind of reel us back into expecting better from our leaders?
I hope so. I hope so. It may take some time. It may take him stepping away from the public stage, or getting called out in such obvious ways that he can't get elected. And then maybe it will die down, and then we can heal and rebuild. That's the hope. But I do, not to get on a complete tangent here, but I actually think, like, underneath the poisonous political discourse that we have, and there's some exciting things happening in the country, around green technologies and, the reshoring. And, I love some of the stuff, like how we're healing vets with MDMA and psilocybin, how we're healing addicts with like cannabinoids and cannabis and things like that. How regenerative agriculture is like starting to get some momentum behind it. How doctors are healing patients using food as medicine to reverse chronic diseases, and the awareness around how broken and corrupt our food system is. Like, underneath the poisonous discourse, I think there are a lot of really cool things happening that if we could just snake sheds its skin, if we could just shed this shit that's been going on since like the Vietnam War, like this country's ready to pop, and that's what keeps me going, is that there's a lot of good things going on. And I think telling people that, and giving them a path forward to self-actualize and to be healthy and to have a good job and have a good quality of life and not stress out about their economic situation, and how we can heal addictions and fentanyl and heroin and all of this stuff. Like, how do we heal? And then we got all these modalities that are out there, all these different ways of doing it. I got a group called We the People, and I'm basically highlighting all the stuff I just mentioned. Like this, no one's talking about all this stuff. It's really cool, and I mean, people get really excited about that kind of thing. We could actually heal addiction and heal trauma and grow healthy food and actually be healthy, and the union piece of like having higher wages and good health care and all that stuff. Anyway, getting people excited about it has got to be the path forward. We got to go on an adventure together and get to better somehow. Get to better.
A big thing that really bothered me about the campaign, the Senate race in Ohio, with J.D. Vance specifically, was the just lack of authenticity on any level to his character, whether it was him releasing the books, talking about Trump being heroin for America before then endorsing Trump just a few years later, the complete 180. It felt like, though, on the campaign, these things were quickly just put under the couch and ignored, and all of that inauthenticity just faded away, and he was able to make the Trumpian performance, get on the stage, do the circus, and the truth of what he believed, or whether he's being authentic, or whether this is for money, or whatever it is, all that washed away, and it just became who's putting on the biggest show. How do you make those types of facts matter again in the public conversation?
Well, you got to put on a better show. You got to get people more excited about what's happening and about what you want to happen. Trump clearly was running a campaign on grievance, and just to mention, the Democratic Party brand too is not great in places like Ohio. They see us as a party that's really out of touch, and we can't continue to have that. But I also think, we were up 5 points going into the Labor Day, and then we could not get any help from Chuck Schumer or the Democrats in Ohio or in D.C. And Mitch McConnell came in and gave J.D. Vance like $40 to $50 million, and that's we just could not keep our head above water at that point. But our message was working. Like I said, I talked to Schumer a couple times. I was like, we need $10 million, bro. And we'll put this guy to bed. I don't think Ohio wanted to vote for him. But we didn't have the resources to put him away. And I think, to me, I think having a working class candidate win a state like Ohio would have been a huge shift for the party and the image of the party to say, well, Ohio's got Sherrod Brown and Tim Ryan. It must be a working class party again. And so, but you gotta, like I said, you gotta emotionally connect to people, and we've got to rehabilitate the Democratic Party brand. And I get people mad at me all the time because I'm critical of the party. It's not because I don't love who's in it, and I'm friends with a lot of these people, which makes it very uncomfortable. But the reality is, this guy's a freaking insurrectionist. This guy is terrible. And his crew, Jim Jordan and Cruz and Hawley, and these are bad guys. They're terrible. They tried to overturn the democracy, and we barely beat them. So, to me, a mature adult thing to do is to reflect and say, what are we doing wrong that we are neck and neck with the insurrectionists who are trying to overthrow the country? We have to figure that out, because we have a huge responsibility in making sure that we preserve the democracy, a woman's right to choose, and all these other things that we're talking about. But you've got to have an emotional connection to the voters and have more energy, more enthusiasm, more excitement. You know, I think, you know, especially the presidential campaigns, we tried to do some of this with our campaign, like music is healing. It's exciting. People like it. You know, getting artists in that aren't Democrat, Republican, just in it for the good of the country. You know, we had Dave Matthews in. We had Jackson Brown in. Taylor Swift wanted to come in, but I wouldn't let her. No, I'm joking. But, you know, having that kind of energy around the campaign can help put on a better show than the one that they're supposedly putting on, which many of us don't like at all.
Last question I'll ask, and we'll let you go back to your child's football game, basketball game. Sorry. Some Democrats I talk to, they count Ohio out. They say Ohio went red this time and this time and this time. We need our resources elsewhere. And you were complaining about this earlier. How do you convince Democrats, activists, and small dollar donors that races in Ohio are worth it and that they're worth the effort and investment?
So this is a great question, and I got a great answer. First before I go on, I wanted to say thank you to all the young people who were in Ohio and doing the work for us here, because the grassroots effort is so powerful. Knocking on doors, eyeball to eyeball conversations, listening, learning, trying to understand each other, and getting our message out in that way is so much more effective than TV ads. So thank you for all of that. Like we've got to build that out and keep it going, because it makes a huge, huge difference. And I think the best answer, I forgot the question.
How do you convince people to invest in Ohio elections and winning it back?
So we had 2 ballot initiatives on, and this gets to my point about the Democratic brand not being good. So just take this as like, you know, evidence. 2 ballot initiatives in the fall. One on marijuana legalization, straight legalization, and one on choice. We won both of those by 57% of the vote. Okay, we had a union initiative 10 years ago. They were trying to get rid of collective bargaining in Ohio, public sector, police, fire, teachers, the whole 9 yards. They passed it through the legislature. We put it on a ballot initiative. We won that with 63% of the vote, pro-union. So you take those 3 issues in the last 10 years. This would be perceived as being a Democratic state, right? A progressive state, a liberal state, however you want to say it. So you put a D by any of those, and we lose, you know? And because I was pro-choice, pro for marijuana, pro-union, you know, pro that, but I had the D by the name, and that hurt you here. So Ohio is not, gone. It's not off the board. It's not Alabama. It is a swing state, but you need the right candidate with the right message, talking about the right issues and the right commitment from the national party to be able to get it done. But those ballot initiatives are showing you where the state is, and the state is, I think, a little bit center left, very conservative, a lot of rural areas, a lot of hunters, fishermen, but it's not a deep red state as some would guess. And we just gotta get the right candidates with the right message and the right monetary commitment. We can do it.
Awesome. Mr. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Real quick before you go, you wouldn't remember this because you can't see me, and it was a long time ago, and you met a lot of people, but you came to a Howland speech and debate match about 20 years ago, about 2004, 2005. I walked up to you in the cafeteria and tried to debate you on Iraq. I was a little conservative back then, so a lot has changed in the years, and now I'm completely on the other side. I never thought that would happen. So it's great to get to talk to you again.
You went to Howland High School?
No, I went to Niles.
Oh, you went to Niles, okay. Yeah, how about that? So, one for the good guys, right? We got you on the right team.
Yeah, see, people can be moved, but
well, thanks a lot, Tim. We appreciate it. We'll let you back to your kid, and we'll get back to our children over here.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks again.
Have a good one. Wait, I got
we're
one more
still-
question.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.